Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Awesome. I am Susan Kenyon, and I am going to be teaching today. So I think maybe Jen Bovey might be on this call to make me host. Maybe she already did. Let me do a share screen. Maybe that will work.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, George.
Good morning.
So are you guys seeing my desktop or are you seeing the Ignite presentation?
Ignite presentation.
Ignite.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Fantastic.
Actually, kind of looks like a little bit of both.
Okay. A couple of documents weren't exactly in the presentation, the PowerPoint. So I have them hidden back here when we get to that section so that we can all share it. So as long as we have enough to keep us going, then we'll be in good shape. All right, I'm gonna just hold off a couple more seconds in case anybody else joins us. Okay. All right, we're at 9:02, so I think we should just jump in. What do you guys think? You ready to get going?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I am an agent. So my name is Susan Kenyon. I'm up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, with the 463 Market Center. My husband and I are partners in business. He got his license in 2009. I got mine about 7 years ago. And we've been working together ever since. We have a small team out of Dover, New Hampshire. So we service the New Hampshire and the southern Maine areas. So I love teaching Ignite, but I definitely teach it from an agent perspective. We are in production, so we're teaching it from a production standpoint for sure. That's the flavor that you'll have today from me. If you have questions or comments or anything that you want to add today, I love open participation. So just unmute yourself and jump right into the conversation. That would be fantastic. Today's topic is making and receiving offers, which is really one of my favorites. I love contracts and I love the offer process. So as we're looking at our agenda and what we're doing, it always starts off with this slide of what successful agents do every day. And we talked a lot in Ignite about growing your business with lead generating for buyers and sellers, making seller listing presentations, making buyer presentations, previewing real estate. And when you do all of that, then you get the ability to, oh, here's Tim Lindsay just making sure I'm in. Just gonna let him know that I'm in. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. Yeah, what I'm trying to do, Nobody has the keys yet. I got to log back in as the region so I can get the keys. That way we can mute people. Because we have a history of people bringing us to the bathroom, which is intriguing, but I also don't want to do that on Monday. So yeah,
Awkward. Yeah.
less flushing, more learning. Yes, so I'm working on
Perfect.
that.
Can
Yes,
you change
Thank
the
you.
slide, to slideshow? So, because we're seeing your preview slides
yeah.
instead.
You gotta switch it over to use slideshow. There you go,
Yeah.
kid.
There you go. Great.
Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Thanks for letting me know. Technology is not always my friend. I do the best I can with it. I leverage that piece out. So, after you get to that point of having been able to grow your business, now you get the ability to run your business. So I love this piece because you guys have done so much work. I hope that during this whole first section of Ignite that you've made your appointments. I know your goal was to set 2 appointments, right? And get some listing appointments or some buyer appointments, get some agency agreements signed so that you could show houses. So this section here says that we're going to talk about show buyers houses and negotiate contracts. We're going to actually jump right into negotiating contracts. And let's just pretend that we've all already done the showing buyers houses. That being said, I'm going to renege on what I just said and back up to, while we're talking about making and receiving offers, we're going to talk about from both perspectives, making the offer while you're representing the buyer, and then we're going to turn that around and to receiving the offers when you're representing the seller. However, when you're showing buyers houses, I love working with buyers because it can be very exciting. You're really helping some folks out, whether it's first time buyers, whether it's moving up buyers, whether it's second homes. But when I'm showing houses, I'm looking at things from a completely different perspective than the buyer, right? They're looking at, what does the kitchen look like? What is, is there going to be enough bedrooms? The bathroom, is everything updated? I'm walking around and I'm taking notes on all the things in case they want to write an offer. I'm looking at, are there any signs of damage anywhere? I'm looking at the ceilings. I'm looking at in the basement. When I'm in the house and when I'm in the basement, can we get to all 4 walls when it comes time to inspect this property? Because that's going to be important. If you're walking and looking around in a house that's maybe borderline hoarder house, you're going to need to build these things into your contract should your buyer want to make an offer. So it's really important when you're showing buyers houses that you're looking through it from the lens that you're going to need when you're advising them on their offer. So we do all of that. We take our notes. And one of the reasons I always literally write down every little thing when I'm showing a buyer a house for each property is that you might be touring a bunch of properties and you think you're going to remember or that your buyer's going to remember which house had all the debris outside, which house was I concerned about, the columns on the decking, but you don't when it comes time to making the offer. So that's why I always, when I'm showing buyers houses, I'm taking really good notes on each and every house because you never know which one they're going to go back to. And when I'm showing them houses, when we leave, I'm also a salesperson, so I'm asking them, is this a house you're going to want to make an offer on? We want to get them thinking in terms of moving down this list to the negotiating contracts where we're making offers. So let's jump right down to that. So today we're going to talk about the offer process. And again, I'm just going to remind you, please jump in and participate as often as you want to, whether it's with questions, whether it's with, maybe experiences that you have, or maybe something that you're going through right now. And so we're going to jump right into, we've shown the buyer some properties and now they've identified something that they want to make an offer on. Oh, anyone? No? Okay. So the process looks like this. The buyer makes an offer. And then the seller really has to have 3 different ways that they can respond to that. They can counter the offer. They can accept the offer, or they can just reject the offer. So what does that look like? if they are going to counter the offer and we're going to get into the nitty gritty of all the pieces of it. If they're going to counter the offer, that means that, there's something in there that the seller wants to negotiate, and it's not always price. So it could be the earnest money deposit. It could be the closing date. It could be something that you've added as an additional contingency. It could be the type of financing. It really could be anything. Or if you're really lucky, maybe your offer is so strong and there's something compelling in there and the seller just accepts the offer right away. That's awesome when that happens. Or they're going to just reject the offer right from the get-go. Those are really the three things that they can do. And it does sometimes happen that the seller might reject the offer. What scenarios are you thinking that could happen? It could be, you know, you might have a buyer that is like, I never offer full price. And some of them, the offer price, which we're going to get into how to determine each, of the important pieces of the offer. But the price is really determined by your buyer. And I'm working with someone right now who they're like, I usually go in at half. Well, we're not in that market right now. So we might be getting them up to offering more than half, but he's never going to offer full price. So if your offer is a lot lower than what your seller is even willing to consider, some sellers will say just decline and reject the offer. So that is an option of something that can happen. One thing to keep in mind is that everyone brings a different perspective to the table. So emotions are high for buyers, and emotions are high for sellers. And we're doing as we are directed by our client. So it's our job to make sure that our emotions are never high. And if they're high, then stop, take a minute, get yourself through that privately, and then go back to the table and communicate with your client. We never communicate with our client or with the co-broke with high emotions. It will not serve your client well. And that is really what our job is all about. We'll talk about, how to present offers and stuff like that. One thing I will like to reference is when you are writing that offer, um, once you get to the point of writing the offer, momentum now is your friend. So we're going to want to make sure that we've been doing a lot of consulting with our buyer on the whole process. And we're going to want to keep that ball moving as quickly as possible. And I'll probably say it a few times today. This is the point where we like to move quickly without rushing. When you rush, you make mistakes. And we can't afford to make mistakes. Our clients are counting on us not to make mistakes. So we move quickly without rushing. So you're going to be doing a lot of preparation behind the scenes every time before you talk to your buyer. And especially when we're at the point where we're going to be communicating with them on writing that offer. So we're going to be setting the stage. We're going to be professional. We are communicating now. The reason I like to talk about making and receiving offers is because one of the things that I am the most passionate about in this business is your relationship with your co-brokes. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today and the importance of, if you're someone that likes to email and text, you now have to get over that, and you're going to have to pick up the phone, and you're going to have to communicate. And it's really important to practice that. So you've talked a lot about scripting as you were growing your business. Scripting now is equally as important now that we're moving into the running your business and you're going to be communicating with your co-brokes. And a lot of that is going to be verbal communication. How's everyone feeling about that process? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Thanks. If you could jump in there so I could grab a sip of caffeine, I'd be so grateful. Hold on.
I'll whistle for a little bit while you take a bigger gulp. There we go. Excellent.
It is Monday. Okay, so we're going to, now we have gone over the offer process. and we're going to move over to preparing the offer. So preparing the offer, how much of this can there's a lot of components that go into getting ready to prepare the offer, because remember, your buyer is like super pumped, right? We've identified a property. We're going to talk in terms of what the market looks like today up here in the New Hampshire, Southern Maine area, probably where you are too. It's a seller's market. Are you guys seeing that too? Yeah. So we have to move quickly, right? If we want to have our buyer's offer to be considered before the property is even not available anymore. So we're going to talk about the things to do to prepare an offer. And really, as we go through this list, you should have completed and prepared for everything on this list prior to talking to your buyer. You should have all of this stuff ready. All of this time that you've spent with your buyer is about relationship. So that whole piece, when you went over that Ignite session on your buyer consultations and working with buyers and showing properties, you were building relationship. You were setting the stage. You were preparing them for the time when they would get to being able to write an offer. And now that I'm in this, if you can bear with me 1 second. Can you guys still see my screen? This next slide wasn't in the PowerPoint, this write the offer slide. So I'm just switching over. Can you see that write the offer checklist to write an offer page?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not as pretty as a PowerPoint, but I wanted you guys to see the whole checklist while we were on this call. And it's not in my PowerPoint, but it is in your packet. So when you're after class reviewing your packet of materials, this is in there. I forget I think it's on page 3. So your checklist to preparing an offer. We're going to, so preparing to write an offer, the first thing that is on here is, oops, I'm on write the offer, prepare the offer, is obtaining the buyer's pre-approval letter from the lender. So let's chat about that for a minute. This is an enormous piece of the puzzle. You should have, at this phase, you should have already been in verbal communication, verbal on the phone, speaking actual words to and from, two-way conversation with the lender about your buyer's ability to buy. And those conversations look a lot like, what are they able to buy, but also what is their comfort level with buying? We don't want to put somebody in a house that maybe they can afford the payment, but it's going to strap them for all the other areas of their life. If they have a good lender, their lender should have talked to them about their comfort level payment. And we want to keep them in that zone, because remember, their emotions are really high. If they're now starting to want to put offers in on properties that are really capping their full budget, have those conversations with them. Okay, this is at the top. So if you do that, how is your life going to look if you no longer have budgets for things like vacations and stuff like that? They may be comfortable with that. That's their choice. Your job is just to make sure that after they close and they're there for 6 months, they're still super happy that they paid what they paid for the house. So we talked about that with the lender. We talk about what their financing options are. I love scenario sheets for buyers from their lender, so that we know as their agent, are they able to do multiple types of lending? Can they do, maybe we're going to try for a VA or an FHA loan, but do they have the ability to get a conventional loan if the property type lends itself to being only available for a conventional loan? Or in the market that we're in, it might be that it's most competitive for your buyer to be able to get that home if they're conventional. So we really want to know, like, what are their options? Do they have the money for closing costs? Have we reviewed that with them? If they're really jumping in at the point of now it's time to write the offer and they need the seller to contribute all their closing costs, you're in big trouble because we should have known that because we're not in that market, right? So talking to your lender, obtaining their pre-approval letter, um, if this is a buyer that you've been working with for a while, maybe you've had that conversation with them on how far into the process are you with your lender? Did you give them your credit score and you can fog a mirror so they spit out a pre-qualification letter? Not a strong buyer. Um, Consulting with them is okay. We're working with a great local lender. We're all three communicating as a team. Have you started giving your documents to your lender so that they can give you a full pre-approval? Have you given them your bank statements and your W-2s and your tax returns? Maybe you're lucky enough that they've gone far enough down the process with their lender that underwriting's already taken a look at them and they already have an approval. Now you have a very strong buyer. We want to know all of those things at the time of writing an offer. So it says your client's offer will be more attractive to the seller if a pre-approval letter is submitted at the same time. So yeah, we definitely, when we're submitting an offer, we want it to look better than everybody else's offer. And when it says pre-approved and um, it has the property address on it, it has the amount of the offer written on it. Um, it Again, I'm going to keep saying we're always wanting our folks to be working with local lenders. That it's a stronger offer. Um, then that helps position your buyer to have their offer in consideration and then accepted.
Susan, on
Susan?
that note too, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I like that you're saying call the lender and have that conversation, because if you're in a multiple offer situation, a lot of times the seller's agent's going to call you and say, hey, what's this pre-approval? And if you're like, I don't know, it's a paper, I got it from my buyer. I mean, like, you should, when you get that pre-approval letter, you should pick up the phone, like you said. That way, if you get that phone call, you can speak to your buyer. You can actually represent your buyer better because you know the ins and outs of that pre-approval letter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys are going to be in relationship now if you go under for what, 60 days, 45 to sometimes even 90. So, get cozy with them. Absolutely.
Susan, I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, when do you, before they're pre-approved, that you've spoken to them and they're not pre-approved yet, they're not working with an agent. So you direct them to an agent. So when do you meet with them and have them sign the exclusive buyer, agreement? Do you wait until after they're pre-approved before you do that?
No, thank you. That's really a great question. And what my practice is, when I'm meeting with them, I'm wanting them to sign the buyer agency right away. Even if
Okay.
that means that, they might be a year out, but what I'm doing by having them sign the buyer agency agreement is part of my presentation with them is that I let them know I call it a loyalty agreement. So what we're doing here is, and I use those words with them, I'm consulting with them. We're talking about their wants, their needs, their, bedrooms, bathrooms. What does your ideal home look like? How long do you plan on being there? Is it 3 years? Is this your forever home or is this your beginning home? So that I know how to best advise them. Then I bring out the buyer agency agreement. I said, well, what this is a loyalty agreement where I'm agreeing that I would like to help you purchase a home. And you're agreeing that you want my help. And then you go through the different pieces of your buyer agency agreement. And the two pieces that I love the most are what I'm going to do for you, where it talks about the agent's responsibilities. And I'm being a little vague because we have multiple states here, but I'm pretty sure we all have this piece in our agreement somewhere, where it's the duties of the agent. Where I'm your professional real estate agent. I'm not your attorney. I'm not your tax advisor. I can be the source of the source. But as your real estate agent, these are the things I'm going to do for you. And then there's usually, which is your scope of service. Then there's that other line of what are the buyer's responsibilities? And I take some time going over that with them so that as I'm working with them, whether it's for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, they're understanding what their piece of the loyalty agreement is, which is when you see properties online and you want more information, you're calling me and I'm getting you the more information. You're not clicking the get more information button, right? And having other agents calling them. When you go to an open house, you're letting them know, I work with Susan Kenyon. You're giving them extra business cards so that if they do go into an open house, they can just give your card to them. If they're just out in the marketplace and they see a property and they want to know more about it, call me. That's my job. I love doing that. I'm here to consult with you. Our motto is relationship service results. So part of any presentation that we do is we let them know we start with relationship. The relationship is the most important part to me. If I'm not in relationship with you, I can't service you well. So I want to make sure that my relationship is solid. So part of that relationship is getting your buyer agency agreement signed and then letting them know what their responsibility is to you and that you are choosing to work with them. So now you're just playing like a psychology piece. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Thank you.
Okay. Then because now I'm in relationship with them and I'm their agent and I'm their consultant. Now I'm calling their lender. If they don't have one, I might do that right there while I'm at the table with them. Great. Have you spoken with a lender yet? I have a great local lender. If they've worked with maybe a Rocket Mortgage or somebody that's not a local lender, I'm going to ask them to get a second opinion with my local lender. It won't cost them anything. It might give them a different perspective. We want to get an overall picture of what your financial health is for purchasing a home. And I just want to give you some options without obligating you to anything. And that's how I open up that conversation. Then once they do that, then I'm talking to them and their lender as we're shopping, saying, letting the lender know, I want them pre-approved. I want you to ask them for all of their documentation and send their file to underwriting now rather than waiting. I don't want you to wait till I send you a purchase and sales agreement. I'm now driving the bus. I'm looking in both directions. I'm the leader. I am in charge. I'm directing the lender. I want you to get all their docs and I want you to send their file to underwriting while we're shopping so that when we write an offer, they're a stronger buyer. And I want to know what their pitfalls are because they don't know what they are. Things that will come up could be child support. Glory be, that is always a big one. Like they don't think that child support could factor into their ability to buy. So when they've just given somebody a credit score and they get approval for 450 and they have no idea that they're paying $500 a month in child support, you don't want to wait till you're under agreement to find that out. You got to find that out now, and it's our jobs to kind of guide them that way for pre-approval. Any other questions on how to talk to a lender? I mean, you have the right to ask those things. They might not do that without you asking them to.
Susan, can you just clarify or just tell us your experience? It wouldn't surprise me that we have some clients out there who want to have the relationship with the agent, but have some discomfort with their financial history. And just kind of, you know what I'm saying is that, let's say someone has a lower credit score and they're going to feel more comfortable because they think they're compromising their relationship with us. Just how do you navigate that? Do you understand what my question is?
Yeah, Rhonda, super great question. And I would say sometimes you have to read the body language. So with COVID, it's a little challenging, right? Because we might be doing a lot on just the phone. And that's where if you're not able to meet them in person, I really encourage you to get on a Zoom or a FaceTime so that you have the ability to read their body language, 55% of your communication. You're going to see it. If they're apprehensive, when you get to the money talk, if they're apprehensive, you should either hear it in their voice or see it in their body language. That's your signal that you're not in relationship enough yet. Stop. Back up. We're not in judgment. And I let them know, hey, I'm not sitting in judgment here, but I can best serve you when we have open communication. And so your finances are going to come up. I can help you best with communicating with your lender. These are the things that they're going to know to give you a full pre-approval. and not just a full pre-approval, but all of these things are going to come up when your file gets submitted and goes to underwriting. Things that they're going to do a deep dive into your finances. They're going to be looking at your bank statements. They're going to have to source all of your income and verify your income. If they see whatever they see for regular payments on your bank statements, like if they already have a mortgage, if you have car payments, if you have child support or alimony, all of those things are going to bubble up to the surface. So it's really great for us to get all of this stuff out on the table now. I want to take you shopping for a house that you're able to buy. I don't want to show you a house that we find out later you can't buy and break your heart. Yeah, look for the signs and then go from there. Okay. And another great thing here is, we don't have time to be showing them properties that they can't buy. So if you know they're a VA or they're an FHA and they can't go conventional, when we're looking through their property carts, and good Lord, I hope everyone sets someone up on a property cart. If you're working with a buyer and you haven't set them up to get automatic properties, stop what you're doing after this call and go back and do that. Let your MLS do the heavy lifting. Um, when they're saying, "Oh, I like 123 Main Street and I like 675 Broadway," pull those up. Pull all those pictures up. Are there indications on that in those pictures or in the remarks on that listing to say that it might not meet the requirements for an FHA or a VA loan type? Call the agent. Find out if it does meet those loan types. Um, because you don't want to show someone a house that has a ton of peeling paint, broken windows, it's never going to pass FHA, and maybe a rental loan's not going to work. So learn your loan types. It's part of your job to know what those requirements are. Um, okay. Anyone else have any questions on lenders? No? Okay. Produce
I'm sorry, I do have a quick question, sorry. Just
Yeah.
as a new agent, when you're putting together your vendor list, what are some key questions that you ask vendors that kind of guides you into deciding who you'll work with? I know you mentioned maybe the speediness of lenders, getting the files sent to underwriting. Is there anything else that a new agent should be asking lenders to help them distinguish who to go with?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can certainly utilize your market center to, you want a reputable lender to start with. Um, I want a lender that can do every lending type that I'm going to need. The ones that like my local lender, for example, um, there's some areas that are outliers that they might not do, like, mobile homes in parks, mobile homes on land, stuff like that. Those are, if we're going to put those aside, we're just going to talk straight residential, single family homes or 1 to 4 multifamilies. I want to know that they can do multiple lending types. I want to know that they will meet and go through all of that stuff with my buyer prior to me sending an offer in, that they'll run scenario sheets for me. So a scenario sheet looks like they have an idea of about the town that you're looking in, and a number that you want to put in there for purchase price, for taxes, for different loan types, so that it will actually spit out what a closing cost scenario would look like, and what interest rates would be for those different types based on their credit scores, and what then their monthly payment would look like. So then when you're looking at properties, if it fits into one of those scenarios, but maybe the taxes are higher or lower, you can say, well, your payment's going to be a little higher or a little lower depending on one of those variables. So you want a lender that will do those things for you. Um, you also want a lender that will modify. So you want to know as an agent what their range is that they can purchase in. When you submit a pre-approval letter with an offer, if they're able to purchase up to $500,000, but you're putting an offer in on a house that's 350,000, you don't want to use a letter that says 500,000 because you're giving away leverage. As the listing agent, I would love for you to do that because now I know you can buy more than the 350 that you're offering. But you want your lender to be able to modify, and your offer looks stronger when your pre-approval has the property address that you're offering on, It has the number that you're going in at, and you can put in there that they've been pre-approved. So find out, will you get my buyer pre-approved? Will you get all of their documents and submit it to underwriting while we're shopping so that we know that where they're standing? When we write an offer, it's going to mean that the seller's going to feel more comfortable about it, and it could shorten the length of time that you have to be under agreement. So if you're working with a first-time home buyer, that might be better for them because that might be what their seller wants. Does that answer?
So,
Does that help?
Yes, that helped a lot. Thank you very much.
so Susan, just curiosity, you're saying that like when you're submitting the approval letter with the offer that you want the lender to be right on that number that you're offering.
Yep.
And in this market where, you know, a lot of times we're trying to get offers in like immediately because, you know, we're into multiples or whatever. Are you experiencing any turnaround issues from the lenders on something like that?
Yes and no. Great question. Just like, relationship is the cornerstone to my business. It's not just a relationship that I have with my clients, it's the relationship I have with my lender. So if I know like the weekend is coming up and I'm going to be going in at maybe some different price points, I know you already know what you're showing your client. You should have an idea if it's going to be something that they're going to want to put an offer in. You can have some pre-done if they're meeting the number. It's not a lot of work for them to go, and they could spit out 3 pre-approvals for you on a Friday. If you're showing 3 houses and you know what you're gonna go in at, you should have an idea of what you're gonna go in at. If your pre-approval letter looks pretty close to what your offer is, could be the offer price or whatever, you could have them do those ahead of time. If you think that it is gonna be a scenario where you could be writing an offer that weekend, find out if they're available to write those letters. And, we're humans too, so, like, if my lender's going away for the weekend, I might ask her for those 3 and have her get really close to what I think we're gonna go in at. That's gonna be a good enough scenario that you're still looking at a really strong offer when you submit it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, how does it come across to the listing agent if you provide an approval letter for, say 15 grand over what the actual offer is?
Fantastic. However, they should be coming from a place of curiosity. So we are in that market, right, where people are offering over asking price. And so this might be answered more in a future slide, but I'm in for let's just answer these questions as they come up. So we are seeing offers coming in and buyers offering more than asking price. That's the market that we're in. So if your buyer wants to do that, say since we're on the CMA part here, you've done a CMA on the house that they want to offer. Now, a CMA and what is actually happening in the market might look like 2 different numbers. So a CMA should really be based off of closed comps. Um, you know, but we are seeing buyers offer over asking. The first this you have to prepare them for what are your future pitfalls if you're going to do that. And remember, we're not emotional when we're preparing an offer. If we're asking them, if you're offering over asking price and the appraisal comes in low, do you have the money to pay that out of pocket? I don't care if they do or they don't. I just want to ask them, are they going to be comfortable with that? If this is a property that they plan on owning for 30 years and they end up going in higher than market and they might be upside down at the beginning, that's their call. I have zero judgment around that. Because it might be their dream home. It might get them to being close to their grandkids, or it might get them to a place where they can have kids. That is their call, so I don't want to judge that. What I do want to make sure is that are we preparing them for a situation where the house is on the market for 400? There were 30 people at the open house. I really want it. I have the reserves to be able to if the appraisal comes in at 4 and I'm offering 415 or 425, I can make up that $25,000 difference because the seller might not come down to you. So there's two things you have to do. You have to prepare your buyer for that. And then if you have a strong listing agent, I'm going to ask you that question. I'm going to ask you, buyer agent, my seller is not going to accept they right now we're seeing sellers not accepting appraisal contingencies where they're saying, if the appraisal comes in low, I'm expecting you to meet that higher price. Can your person afford it? If they're doing a VA loan 100% financed, you need to know that they have that money. You might need, as the listing agent, to call the lender to find out if they can. As the buyer's agent, you 100% have to talk to the lender saying, we're going in over asking price. Can they afford? If they're going to have to bring additional money to the table if the appraisal comes in lower than their offer price.
And there's some lending products, Susan, that won't allow gift funds of a certain amount over the ask. I guess I misheard that question, and I'm gonna
No,
ask it. And go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think I might have not asked it the right way. What I was trying to ask was, does it look bad to the listing agent if you have a pre-approval letter for,
That's
say,
what I thought you said. Okay.
425,
Yeah.
but then you go in at 400?
Well, you're giving away leverage.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it looks wonderful to the listing agent because me as a strong listing agent, I'm going to take advantage of you every day for that.
Yeah. Anything else in your pocket you want to show me? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So
yeah, ultimately, Liz, the best thing to do is and Sue had said this earlier, if you can have maybe a handful of pre-approvals available to be closer to an offer you might make. And above and beyond that, I've also seen this happen. I don't know if Susan and her husband John do this. I've had our lender write up a pre-approval that says the Lindsays are approved to purchase the house at 12 Oak Street with the appropriate MLS number, which basically says they have the financial wherewithal to execute the transaction within reason. That way you're not even showing a number. You're just saying they're prepared to buy this home at its current list price in the current market.
Yeah.
Okay. And in today's market, when you go to open houses, say, or a private showing, would you typically get a pre-approval letter just for the list price? Because a lot of times you have to show the pre-approval before you even go into the house.
Yeah. Well, you could do that. I mean, unless there's an indication that they're so overpriced. So we're in a weird market, right? Unless they're showing you that they're so overpriced, but that's highly unlikely. I would most likely go in with either what Tim said, saying they're able to purchase at this MLS number, or just put the purchase price, the offer price on the MLS on there. Because if you go to the open house and there's a gazillion people there, there's the writing's on the wall. They're going to receive multiple offers.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Good questions. The lending piece
Hello.
is important. We got to nail it. Hi.
Hello. Hello. Hi. In other words, we don't have to have the lender to put the amount they were approved for on the letter. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, sometimes there may be a scenario where if you are going in at 123 Main Street, and you have the lender write in there that, Mr. and Mrs. Jones are approved to purchase 123 Main Street, MLS number, blah, 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 that they're approved for that, then the most likely that listing agent or hosting agent isn't going to give you a hard time that there's not a number on there, because the lender's already looked at referencing an MLS number and they know what the asking price is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Susan, I have a question.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, it's Casey.
Hi, Casey.
There's a clause that I've heard a lot about, and I actually used it once, but it didn't really work for me. It was you give the price that you're willing to pay, and then you go up incrementally, like $1,000.
Oh, an escalation clause.
Escalation clause.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard, it didn't work for the one that I did. They went 5,000 below up to the asking price, and they just didn't want it. So I've heard good things about them, like I use them all the time, and really bad things, like no, some realtors hate it, and they're really discourage the seller.
So I think there's a gazillion schools of thought on that. As a listing agent, I love it because I feel like you're giving me leverage. I have received an escalation clause where they've said, I'll go up to this number and I'll counter at that number.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
they'll
but
say, that's not
Susan,
how an escalation clause works. I'm not countering that an escalation. You're now telling me that you're able and willing to purchase at this purchase price. Remember, when you put an offer in, if the
Right.
if the buyer puts an escalation clause in there, the seller has 3 options, right? They can counter, they can accept, they can reject. I can counter on any piece in that offer.
Yeah.
I can say, I'm
Susan,
not acknowledging your escalation clause.
Susan, aren't you
Okay.
typically in that scenario, isn't the buyer's agent normally going to require that you provide proof that you have an alternative offer, which
You
protects them, that then protects them from you as the listing agent, kind of going like, oh, well, you said you would go up to 450, you're starting at 400, you're escalating in increments of 5,000. I'm just going to counter you at 450 because I know you'll go that high.
Yeah.
Isn't it normal for the escalation clause to require something from you that you bear the burden of proof that you have an alternative offer?
Well, I guess that's your perspective, Robert. And if I was the listing agent on the other side, I'm not obligated to anything that you put in there, nor is my seller. So you're risking. So that's just my school of thought on that. I've received escalation clauses on both sides, and how something normally works, and how much leverage you're giving me on your buyer when I represent the seller. Remember, it's an offer. I have 3 options. I can negotiate and counteroffer on anything. So thank you, Robert, for letting me know that your folks can go up to 450. Our counter is that we're removing the escalation clause and we're countering at 450. And I have
Really?
multiple offers, by the
I
way.
think that sounds sketchy to me.
That's your perspective.
Yeah, definitely is my perspective.
Yeah.
It's also, we're also seeing things in the market, but you should be prepared for that. If you're going to offer an escalation clause for your buyer, you're putting them at risk for that.
May I? I'm sorry.
Another perspective is it could jump you to the front of the line and where they're only going to want to work with you. Sorry, go ahead.
Susan? Oh,
Hi. Go ahead, Mary. Hi.
oh, hi, it's Mary. And I'm thinking about what Matt just said, and I'm in Massachusetts, as I think he is as well. And I had that experience where somebody submitted, for my seller submitted an escalation clause, and it was only good if I could prove that we had a verifiable offer over what they submitted. I believe that might be what Matt's referring to. Am I correct, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I hear that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're forgetting, and you have to prepare your buyer for, is the seller can counter at anything.
Really?
The seller can counter at, I am not acknowledging I have to prove anything, that I have to show you other offers. I can counter at anything that I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, if you're going to use an escalation clause, be prepared for every scenario.
Really?
Why couldn't they? I can
Yeah,
counter
no, that makes sense.
in the
That makes
contract.
sense. And then, but you also, on the seller side, run the risk of, maybe the buyer withdrawing the offer or something like that, or providing less favorable terms or, whatever.
Absolutely. But
Sure.
now if you're using an escalation clause, it's going to be because you're in a heated market, most likely with multiple offers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it might be a risk that the seller is willing to take. And I'm sitting here without judgment, folks. Here, you can do whatever you want. But what I am saying is that part of our job is to make sure that we're letting our buyer know of every scenario. So if you're going to put the scenario out there of an escalation clause that they can go up to a dollar amount, you are also letting that listing agent know that that's how much they can pay.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we do that then?
Well, I don't know. Why would you?
Well, what's the,
here's a
why does it
reason why.
exist, is what I'm
Here's a
saying.
reason
Because I
So-
hear
so
about it
that-
often as well.
So that in a multiple offer scenario, you're not losing out if somebody comes in at a higher price than what you're offering at a lower. So if you're offering 400 You have an escalation clause at $5,000 increments. Another offer comes in at 400,000, 405. Then you're basically saying, I'll go to 410 and beat that offer up to a certain amount. And
You
what
see the same thing happen on eBay. If somebody's trying to win a pair of Air Force
Yeah,
Ones,
exactly.
Yeah, that's what I
I'll
was.
do $5
that's what I-
over the
okay.
best offer to a certain number. It's the same thing. I think this is where we remember our disc assessments. If I'm a high D, and I know Susan's sort of wired this way, Nathan Dickey, our fearless leader at
That's what I was
463,
gonna
would be like,
ask.
if you can do 475, just do 475. The high C
So-
is like, this is fun. I like the extra paperwork. Let's do this bit by bit. Let's follow the rules, and we'll go $1,000 at a time. You know, some people, you know, honestly, Susan makes a great point, especially in this climate. If the Lindsays just opened their kimono and said, we can do 482, I'm probably going to skate right to that puck and get this over with.
In this market, in a normal market, or I mean, a more, less.
Again,
Do they
again,
happen often, or?
I don't
really see the point.
We don't see
You're
them
not going to get
exercised
it in a
whole
buyer's
bunch.
market.
Yeah, we don't see them exercised a whole bunch. At the
Okay.
same time, this really is, and Susan used the language earlier. Yes, Matt, that's your perspective, right? Everybody's going to treat this differently based on our emotional wiring. We do have our obedience that we owe to our buyers and sellers. At the same time,
Right.
when your buyer or seller asks you for your professional expertise, well, I understand how they feel. We've had other clients that have felt the same way, and what we have found, because we can go back to our historical judgment of this is what we've seen. Historically, this is what happens when somebody exercises an escalation clause. Some people, more often than not, we find that sellers will go right to that number. So
Yeah,
if
but
go
you
to that
have
number,
to have the verifiable offer.
No, you don't.
You don't.
Well, I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying if you're, that could be part of the offer
could be.
the buyer is making.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the one thing I really
I wouldn't
just
do it
want to make
otherwise.
sure you understand is that because the seller has the option to counter, they don't have to acknowledge that piece of your counter. Part of their counter could be that I'm not giving you anything. I'm just jumping to the number. My counter could be that I'm removing, that I have to. Your buyer doesn't have to accept that. And Robert, you
Right.
know, you're saying, Robert, that your buyer wants to see the offer, and to them that's important, and they're right. My seller is countering that they're not going to provide anything, that they have multiple offers, and that's their perspective, and they're right. But their counter is that they're not going to provide that to you, and their counter is the purchase price is $450. Please let me know what you'd like to do.
You're going to lose the offer.
I'm a multiple offer situation, so that might be fine. You just have to know that I don't think it's fair. I just want you to have a clear understanding in your head that the seller can counter at anything that they want.
Yeah, so can the
And
buyer. I
so,
mean, it's crystal clear.
right. But when you're communicating that back and forth with the agent, just don't have any emotion around it. That would be my biggest piece of advice. So when you're going back to another agent and saying, that's not the way this works, it has to work this way, that's not open communication with the co-broke, and it's not correct. It could be your buyer's perspective, and I could be countering this way. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And there's no emotion about it because I'm going to see you on another deal. You're doing what's right for your client, and I'm doing what's right for mine. Just remember that every single thing that you write into an offer, every contingency can be countered.
Thank you, Susan, for clearing that up, because I've seen escalation clauses and I was a little bit leery of them because I've heard it, but that made it very clear. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for explaining that. And
Yeah, you're welcome. And
explanation of it. Thank you.
yeah, don't get upset with your co-brokes when they come back and their client's not responding the way that you want them to respond to your client. It's not the co-broke's fault, and you're going to run into them again. You might have more experience with escalation clauses than they do. But it's important to keep that co-broke relationship clean. Great conversation. Thank you for participating and bringing that up, whoever brought up escalation clauses.
Can I just say that I did one and I did get it. And I did ask them to provide me with the, he lined out the names, but he did give me a copy of the contract. That was
awesome.
Yeah. I've only done it once and it was in a really bad, tough market.
Hey, it can be a strategy if it works to just get your offer to be the first one that gets negotiated, because you can only negotiate one offer at a time, right?
Yeah. Yep. And
Good
I
morning,
was
everybody.
pretty,
I just wanted to remind everyone we are in a 6-state region, and we should always go back to our leadership and our
Yeah.
managing brokers to make sure we understand the language in and around escalation clauses per our state.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm New Hampshire, and it was, we were pretty conservative with what we'd go over with. I think it was only $1,000 over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a crazy market. Our job is to get buyers' offers accepted, which is not easy right now. So we'll keep talking about co-broke relationships. And one of the reasons that I find escalation clauses is one of the fastest areas where agents can get mad with each other. One of the reasons that we never let that happen is because where it is so hard to get buyers' offers accepted right now, I want other agents to want to work with me. So if the previous interaction with them was contentious, it's going to impact my future offers that I present with their future sellers. It's just something to consider. So going back to our checklists, so I'm like a squirrel. Sorry, this could be a long class. Produce a CMA. I do always save my CMAs. I either save it in Command or save it in .loop, whatever you happen to be using. The other thing when you're preparing to write an offer is to review the tax records. This is your tax card. If not all listing agents put all the documents on the MLS. I wish they all did, but it's not that world. If they didn't do it, don't get snarky with them and saying, where's the deed? Just go pull it. Just go do the work yourself. Pull the tax card, pull the deed, call and make sure that the whatever that they've listed for the tax amount on the MLS is accurate. Call the town. Because you're going to want to use that information when preparing an offer. There may be things on the tax card that you're seeing that weren't apparent at the property or apparent in a property disclosure, like was work done without permits, those type of things. I also, when I'm preparing the offer and I'm getting my folks to sign everything, I have my buyers sign everything. I pull tax bills, tax cards, tax maps, deeds. They sign if there's association docs, lead pamphlet. I have them sign everything. Um, I can't guarantee or get a guarantee from them that they've read everything. I want to encourage them to read everything. I'm just trying to do whatever I can to have them actually review all the documentation that we have. If you don't know how to pull that stuff, just go back to your, your productivity coach or your sponsor or someone in your office and have them show you how to pull that stuff. Ensure the property is still available. Oh, this is such a good one right now. Things are moving so quickly. If I am setting an appointment to see a house and it's available to show today, but I'm not going to be seeing it for 4 days, I'm going to need to go back and make sure that it didn't go under contract. That listing agent might not. It might have gone under contract and they didn't call everybody else that still had a showing because they're so busy, because they forgot, because they didn't think of it for whatever reason. Just make sure that it is still available before you go see any and spend time preparing offers. When speaking with the listing agent, build rapport and gather as much information about the seller and the property as you can. I love this one. If my buyer tells me that they're going to want to make an offer, I say, great. I set up a time that I'm going to talk to them about preparing the offer. I call the listing agent. I'm building rapport. I'm setting the stage like, why wouldn't you want to work with me? I am awesome to work with. I'm asking them, hey, Sandy, what's important to you? What's important to your seller? We're preparing an offer. Is other than purchase price, what's important to your seller? Do they have to? Do they have a house that they have to buy? Um, Remember when we talked about when we're going to show houses that I'm writing notes about the property? I might be finding clues at that showing on things that could help my buyer when I'm preparing an offer. Like maybe there's an indication that, and this one actually I just did this summer. It was an older person that you could tell, living in the house. She had a lot of stuff there. I asked a lot of questions. What's your seller doing? Where's she going? She was moving out of state. She was by herself. So I asked, and I got permission from my buyer, would it be, would it help your seller if part of our offer said that your seller didn't have to remove anything from the house? They could leave whatever they wanted to and not get rid of it. So basically, it didn't have to be empty and broom clean. That's a big one for some people. Maybe emptying the house is going to be an enormous burden. You might get that house over someone that offers more money just because that seller now knows that they can't get those bureaus off the third floor and they don't have to. So ask what's important to your seller. Is it the closing date? Does it have to be soon? Does it have to be far away? Other than purchase price, what is important to the seller? And let them know that you are going to be preparing an offer. Ask them, are there other offers already on the table, or are you expecting other offers? Now, remember, they are representing a seller. They don't have to tell you everything, but I also know agents out there that will tell me things that they shouldn't tell me about their sellers. It's not my job to only ask what they should be telling me. It's my job to get as much information from them as possible, right? So ask those questions. They might tell you, is there a high? Is there a low? Kind of feel your listing agent out on that and build rapport. Ask questions of the listing agent to discover what's important to the seller. We just did that. Inquire about the activity on the property, which would be have you had a lot of showings? Do you have other offers? If there was not a seller's disclosure on the MLS or available at the showing, ask if they have one, and to get a copy of that. You really want that prior to making an offer. Because what you're going to do is you're going to read that line by line with your buyer. And then find out if there have been other offers. We talked about that. Looking through my notes here for things I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to mention. When you're talking with the listing agent, and you're letting them know you're writing an offer, let them know my buyer is an FHA. If that's the case, is there anything at the house that we didn't see that might prohibit the house from going FHA financing? Save some time. What I love about that question is if it is FHA, they might say, well, the basement has 4 steps without a handrail, so you know there's going to have to be one. And then find out, well, are those things something that your seller is willing to work with? And I'm not saying this, but maybe my buyer can go put that railing in, even though my buyer might be able to easily go put that railing in prior to closing. Don't tell other people, lenders, that you're doing that. They're not going to want to hear that you're doing that. But have I done that? Absolutely. Have I gone over there and painted part of a garage because there's been chipping paint on it? 100%. That's going to be a you call. Some people don't believe that you should be doing work to a house that you don't own, but work with if it's going to make that deal happen, have I done that? Absolutely. Or find out if you know there's some peeling paint or a broken window. How's the seller going to feel about working together to get those things done for lending type? That is everything on this list for prepare to write an offer. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. We're going to, so the next page is actually, I'm going to keep it on not the PowerPoint here, because the next step is actually moving from preparing to write the offer to writing the offer. And there is a checklist here for writing the offer. So again, I'm going to say we move quickly here without rushing. We have different types of buyers out there. We have folks that are going to want to read every word before they sign it, which is great when you're doing stuff like this because we want them to review everything. But there's a lot of folks out there that are just click happy. You're going to prepare that offer, and they're going to be like click, 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 and they're going to not even read everything. And so we kind of want to slow it down a little bit, but we also want to stay within the time frame that we're submitting the offer in a timely manner. And depending on your buyer, this could be a new experience for them. They don't know, they might be signing everything, but not knowing what the back end ramifications are. So we want to be making sure that we're explaining everything to them. We also want to speak their language. So let's stay away from acronyms when we can. And then we have done all of the work to prepare our offer. We have all of that. I kind of my practices, personal practices, I pre-fill in a bunch of stuff on the offer. And if I'm not sitting down with them, we're doing this over the phone, I send them a copy of the offer. And then I start at line 1 and I read every line, and then I'm filling it in as we go. But I want them to have a copy of the actual language for every line as we're writing the offer together. So to start with, when you're writing the offer, know the market, because your buyer's going to count on you for that. Like right now, we're in a super seller's market. The first area is price and terms. Consult with your buyer to arrive at the most logical offering based on the CMA. And they're not going to know CMA necessarily, so just you could use comparables or market analysis. They might not get a chance to make a second offer in this market, and that's really important to communicate with them. As a listing agent, when I've received multiple offers, not every seller is going to want to go back and ask for highest and best. We don't have the luxury of knowing how that seller falls on a disc profile. And if you know there's multiple offers, you kind of, I advise my folks in that scenario, we might not get to come back and make another offer. I would recommend that you go in at your highest and best. And what is your highest and best? It's the price that you will feel comfortable after we've closed and you've moved in at paying at, and you're still happy with that. If the scenario is after you close, you're regretting that payment, then that's too high. So you're going to want to kind of walk that line with them. As the listing agent, I've had folks knowing they're in a multiple offer situation, and I've had a seller that just doesn't like the stress of going back and asking for highest and best, where they just pick one offer right from the get-go to work with. I've had other agents come back and say, well, why did you do that, Susan? You didn't give my buyer a chance for highest and best. Well, I have to work with my seller and do what they want to. They didn't want to come back and ask for highest and best. So, walk that line with your folks. And refer to the market analysis that you did. And if they're talking about wanting to go over asking price, then you have to start asking those questions about money. That, okay, if we go over asking price and the appraisal comes in at this price, the seller might not come down to meet you. Are you able to come to the table with more money? If you have a strong listing agent, they're going to, when they receive your offer, they're going to ask you that question. The seller's disclosures, super, super important when you're preparing an offer. You're writing an offer based off of the information that you know. So if they're telling you that the furnace is 20 years old or 30 years old, your offer has to be with your buyer knowing that that furnace isn't going to last another 30 years. So if they get into that, you get 2 inspections and then you want a new furnace, the listing agent is not going to be, they're not going to be too happy with you for doing something like asking for a new furnace when they've disclosed to you that it's 30 years old, because your inspections, and I'm speaking for New Hampshire, should be on items that were not previously disclosed. So your offer takes into account the condition of the property as it's disclosed when you have submitted an offer. Another reason that you're being careful about this is that If you go in and it's been disclosed that that the furnace is old or that the roof is nearing end of life, and then you close on the property, and then a year later the furnace dies, you're getting a phone call. You're gonna, if you had never reminded them at the time of offer, look at, you're offering this, the furnace is old, you're gonna be wanting to put money away for that. That's a scenario that the furnace could go in the next few years. You don't want it to be a surprise to them after they close that the furnace was 25 years old and it's at the end of life. Did I word that okay? Does you folks understand that? You will
Yeah.
get that call.
I thought so, yeah.
Well, it's a great point too, because I know that the Kenyans have seen this. You could be in a basement and the home inspector is reminding everybody standing there that the life design of the furnace is 25 years and you're in your 24th year, and that gets people freaking out. But then we'll see that furnace go for another 30 years. Stands to reason when they're either really well made, like a Buderus, or it's just, you know, from like the Bronze Age, and it's just going to go forever. Like the foundation's going to crumble and the furnace will still be going. So preparing people for that, because it is true. And a great home inspector that you work with time and time again, if you've got that person that you know that's not an alarmist, and they're always reminding people about life design and preparing for replacement funds and all that kind of stuff, to Susan's point, is it's really good to develop a great relationship with a handful of inspectors, but one that you know is going to help people guide them through making the right decision and not being an alarmist room to room. Like, oh my God, like what? Well, the light switch cover's cracked. Okay, those are 19 cents at Lowe's. We can fix that, right? You know, but they're out there. I don't know how they keep their jobs, but they're out there.
Yep, absolutely.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Karen.
Hi. Could the buyer still take this into consideration and offer a lower amount because he wants to figure in the cost of the roof or the cost of the boiler?
100%. And that's why you're going over the disclosures, so that your offer price is taking into account everything that you're reading on the disclosure. It's also taking into account anything that maybe wasn't disclosed, but that you saw at your showing. So like, you know, when I'm writing down all the things that I want to make sure that my buyer is aware of at the time of making an offer, when I'm looking at the furnace at a showing, I'm looking at the service record and taking a picture of it. I want to know, have they had this serviced regularly? And I want to know who it is, so that if I have to reference that, um, you know, maybe it says that it was just serviced in December. So I'm going to make a note of that because I'm going to want a record of that service for my buyer.
Okay.
And also because if I'm taking that into account with my purchase price, we're going to get into, I call it the co-broke love letter. We're going to get into that shortly, and referencing why my client's offer looks like it looks. Okay. And I can't, you know, I really can't stress enough, when things, after a property closes, when uh, your buyer owns that house and something goes wrong, you very well could be getting phone calls. You need your paperwork to be tight, and you need everything to have been signed off on. And you need to know that you have consulted and given them good advice along the way, because that's that's your piece of the loyalty agreement, that you're going to do the right thing by them. Conveyance. Consider items in the home will transfer or convey to the buyer. Typically, attached fixtures stay and movable items go with the seller. In some areas, the seller's disclosure statement will specify which items convey. These items are up for negotiation. You know, you're going to want to know, is the washer and dryer staying or not staying? It could be a $2,000 set of washer dryer. That's a big deal to a buyer, and it's a big deal to a seller. The only thing that happens in a purchase and sale agreement is what you put in writing. So this area, I hate personal property and contracts. I hate being a yard sale agent, and we always get there in a contract towards the end, right? Like, oh, do they want to buy the furniture? Do they want to buy this? So you're going to go there. So let's have everything in writing and not be confused. Things that I look out for when I'm at a showing and I want to make sure are in writing are things like swing sets. because the seller, I've had so many times when a seller's like, well, of course, the swing set's going to stay. I go to the walkthrough with my buyer who is like an older couple with no children, and the swing set's there. They don't want it, but now at the walkthrough, we're seeing a swing set. We have to deal with that problem. Conveyance and items that are staying, personal property, fixtures, they should be clear in your offer so that at the end of the contract, we're not having discord about that. I'm going to be teaching the contract to close. I hope you guys are all there. It's my favorite one. The contract to close is so important. Your offer and going under agreement is setting up what contract to close is going to look like, and you want it to look awesome so that you get referrals out of these people later. And one area that you do that is over what is conveying and what is not. It's also an area for leverage if you are trying to get the upper hand, like we talked about, like, are there things that we're going to allow folks to leave at the property? Are there tenants in the building and we're going to allow the tenants and their property to stay? We need to identify that and put it in writing. If we were at an open house or a showing and our buyers had conversation with somebody there and someone said, oh yeah, that, awesome piece of expensive whatever is going to be staying, but we didn't write it in, it's not, and the seller takes it, it's the buyer doesn't get it. So at this is a point when we're writing the offer that I do say to my buyers, was there anything at the property that we haven't talked about that you were expecting to stay? Because if we don't write it in, it doesn't count. Could be the swing hanging off the beautiful farmer's porch. But be clear on what's staying and what's not staying. Earnest money. The buyer makes a deposit to the seller to show good faith in the transaction. The earnest money is typically deposited in an escrow account that is jointly held on behalf of the buyer and the seller. Determine an amount that would be acceptable to both your buyer and the seller. In many markets, 2 to 3% of the purchase price is normal. Check with your team leader or broker to learn how earnest money is handled. So one of the agents' brokerages handles the earnest money, keeps the earnest money, right? I know in our area, it's typically the listing agent, but it doesn't have to be the listing agent. But you do want to be clear with your buyers that that money gets taken from their account immediately. It does go towards their costs at closing. But if you're in a very competitive situation and you might be putting down a larger deposit, you want to make sure that their account is ready to handle that. Like, okay, if you're putting a $10,000 deposit down, as soon as we pass that over to the whoever's holding escrow, they will be depositing that money. It will be taken out of your account already. Are you prepared for that? This is also where if it was going to be any gift money involved, make sure that you have talked to your lender because as Tim mentioned, only certain percentages based off of loan type can become from a gift money. And also only certain people in that buyer's relationship can provide the gift money. I just had a scenario where I had a male buyer and his ex-wife was going to be giving the gift money and that wasn't acceptable for that loan. So have conversations around money. If you represent the buyer, the buyer wants to put as little money down. If you represent the seller wants to have more money put down. If you're in a really competitive scenario, you want to have conversation with your buyer about putting a decent deposit down.
Can I
Any
just
questions on that?
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I just had my first transaction ever. My buyer had a gift, and we had the furnace broke down. It was a low income raffle that we happened to win. So that needed to be addressed. But with the gift thing, we also live in a town that gives a residential exemption because we're on the Cape and there's a lot of second homes. So the mortgage company had figured out his payment based on the taxes that the owner had been paying, which would not be what his taxes are. So he had to go get another gift and pay down his car loan to less than 10 payments in order for everything to go through. It was just it was everything thrown into one. That was my first.
What a great learning opportunity for you.
Oh my God. And I still haven't told my buyer that the nonprofit agency that was doing the transaction, when the boiler failed, they told her, because that would be a capital investment, that she could take it off the market and then put it back on at a higher price after paying that.
Wow.
So it was just sheer luck that she just wanted to be out, and she paid the $7,000 and replaced the boiler. But was all of that wrapped up into one nice, neat little thing.
Right. Talk about a little bit of sweat there getting through that one.
Oh yeah. But
Well,
winning
good
the
job. So
lottery,
did you close?
we did close. Family of 5 had been living with he had been living with his in-laws for 4 years.
Wow.
3 kids. And it, great story. But
That's fantastic. And good job representing them. Now stay in touch with them, because they'll probably move in 3 to 5 years.
I'm hoping.
Good
Hey,
for you.
Susan.
Hi.
Hi, could you speak to some scenarios where the deal doesn't go through, but the seller ends up getting to keep the deposit?
I will. I'm going to try to speak in some general terms, because different states have different rules. We build contingencies into our contract to handle who gets the deposit. And for me, when we get to that line in the contract, whether I represent the seller or the buyer, I speak in terms that are very clear, so that they know what happens with and who gets the money. If you have a contingency built into your contract, we're talking about representing the buyer right now. You can get out for, in my area, please check with your leadership on whatever state you're in. If say you have an inspection contingency, if the inspections don't go well and you are withdrawing within the confines of the dates built into your inspection contingency, the buyer should get the money on that. We have a due diligence contingency, where the buyer has a time to look at documents like the deed, making sure they can get insurance. If they are within the dates of that contingency and they pull out for that reason, then they should get their money back. Now, your state may require different documentation for getting out for that. In New Hampshire, I don't have to tell you why. I just have to say I'm using this contingency to get out. If they're financing, you may have financing contingencies in there, like when they make application, like a finance commitment. But every state's different on that. So I practice in New Hampshire and Maine. New Hampshire has a date that I put in there for a finance deadline. Maine does not. I have to write in that contingency if I want that in there. So if you have written in a contingency, whether it's a boilerplated one on your purchase and sales agreement, or whether it's something that you add to the contract, and you have a date around that, the buyer should be able to get out for that. When I'm working with a buyer, though, I do let them know, if you get close to the end and you have cold feet, you don't get your deposit back. And that's usually how I word it with them. Like, we have built in these contingencies. Here they are. You get your money back for this. If it's not for that reason, or you get cold feet at the end, you don't get your money. The seller deserves that money for having taken their house off the market. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, you're basically saying that, that the buyer can't withdraw for no reason.
Yeah, it's a little, yes and no. What state are you from?
Connecticut.
Connecticut. So I'm not aware of Connecticut. In where I am, if they get cold feet, but it's within the inspection deadline, I can use the inspection to get them
Right.
out of that contract for them.
Right.
Was it technically because of the inspection? Unfortunately, no. But I don't have to prove that. I can get them out for that. So What happens there is, as a listing agent, I'm going to try to squeeze that and have as few days as possible for those contingencies to get past them.
Yeah.
So Susan, using contingencies, are they good? When you're doing you know, your closing, should you use contingencies? Are they good? Is that
Yes.
If you're a buyer,
Yeah, absolutely. So we're like we're in a competitive market, right? So if you know you're in a multiple offer situation and your buyer really wants that house, the more contingencies that you
Yeah.
remove from the table makes your offer stronger than somebody else's. And if
okay?
you're going to play those cards, that's up to your buyer. You have to do a very good job consulting and documenting with them. So my example for that is going to be inspections. I always advise my buyer to get an inspection. Now, I'm in a deal right now with a buyer and they waived inspections. He's a contractor. My husband is a former contractor. They looked at the house together. We advised them to get that they have the right to get the inspections, and they've lost out on multiple homes. He waived the inspection. I get that in writing. Please, and I let them know what I'm doing, that part of my job is to advise you of inspections, and if you want to waive them, I have no judgment around that. That's up to them, right? But I'm going to send you an email, and I'd like you to please confirm that you are advised and that you're moving forward with an offer without doing inspections. Then I take that email and I dump it into my opportunity or my loop or whatever you're using. And
Okay.
Have
that's
you ever
true for
used
any
the hold harmless, Susan?
in what scenario?
In that scenario, like a no inspection.
No,
Okay,
I've never had them sign up to hold me harmless.
Uh-huh.
No, I just get it. I've just gotten it in writing from them with their email to do that.
Thank you.
Not to say you can't. I just don't have any experience around that to guide you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Just circling back to my buyer who will probably be selling in 3 to 5 years. Would it be appropriate for me to contact my contact at that nonprofit just to clarify whether or not that capital improvement that was done would apply to his resale value?
Hey, knowledge is power. Like remember, we're in relationships with everybody.
Right.
I would be in touch with them anyway, just because you never know if they're so happy with having worked with you on this transaction, maybe you'll get other transactions out of them. And where knowledge is power, your buyers.
A listing broker. So they just, it went on the market. You had 2 weeks to submit your application. There was no negotiating the sale price. The sale price was set. So that's what I'm wondering is if he gets the benefit of that capital improvement, even though he didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
The home now has a brand new furnace.
Yeah, I would think they would, but I've never done a transaction like that one.
Yeah.
But I don't see any harm in asking.
Yeah.
And
It'd be a
certainly
good reason to
if you have any
contact
questions,
my
I'll start-
client,
Huh?
It'd be a good reason to contact my client. Hey, this ran through my head. I thought I'd check on it. And I found out that your house is now worth X amount more dollars because of that boiler. So,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because every time we contact them now, because now they're going into command and you're setting them up on a smart plan and you're communicating with them regularly. But when you're communicating with them regularly, you need to be offering value every single time.
Okay,
So that's a great thing to put in there. Okay. Free earnest money. Time for seller acceptance. Be sure to specify the time for acceptance. So this is kind of I hate seeing offers go out there and linger. Sometimes you'll submit an offer, have communication with that listing agent around when I submit the offer. We're going to talk about the co-broke love letter in a little bit. But when we submit them, it's aggressive, in my opinion, to put an expiration date on your offer. depending on what state you're from. So when I'm practicing in Maine, part of the contract has an expiration date on the offer. So I love it because it's expected, but in New Hampshire, it might be considered aggressive to put that on there. So if you are going to have an expiration on your offer, I would use language that is showing that you want to work with them. The buyer respectfully requests a response by this date, this time, and make it reasonable. Don't squeeze somebody on a Sunday when they're going to church and having family time. Don't submit at Saturday night at 9 p.m. and say I want a response by Sunday at 5. It's kind of rude. And that's not how we start any relationship, because we're hoping that we're going to have a 30 to 60 day relationship with these people. So there may be some state issues there that you should go back to your productivity coaches for on that. But if you are putting a time for acceptance or an expiration date, just be careful. And then communicate that with the listing agent when you're submitting the offer. Hey, we put would like a response by this time because we're still looking, and if my buyer is going to be going back out of state, or would like to wrap it up, or if it's possible for your seller to respond within this time frame. Financing terms. Make sure the financing terms would be agreeable to your buyer and the seller. So this is, having been in communication, we talked a lot about that with your lenders, if it's conventional or FHA or VA or any other loan types, and talk about that with your seller. One thing, when we love working with VA buyers, they're near and dear to our heart. They have earned the right to be able to utilize that loan type. Some listing agents don't love getting offers with a VA loan. They're 100% financing. They may think that that buyer doesn't have any, they're cash poor. If that's not the scenario, you need to sell that to the listing agent. Is that loan type going to even work with the property conditions? So there's some questions and communication that can happen around the loan type here. And especially if we have done all the things like gotten them totally approved, they've gone through underwriting, this is a great time to have that conversation with the listing agent. But we don't want to jam up our lenders. So for the loan approval, allow your buyer ample time to finalize their financing. Communicating with your lender. If you put a financing commitment date in there and there's no way the lender can meet that date, don't put it in there. You need to work with the lender. There are things that are taking longer for lenders. It may be approvals. It may appraisals are taking longer. There's a lot of scenarios with lending. We want to make sure that we're putting in dates and deadlines that the lender can meet. Jump in if anyone has any questions on that. The same with closing date. We want a closing date that works for everybody. We want it to work for the buyer. We want it to work for the seller. We want it to work for the lender. Your closing company should be able to meet that. It does say to check with your closing company, but you should be working with the closing company so for this one, I'm saying your closing company should be able to meet that. However, if you have a cash buyer, we used to close cash deals in like 7 to 14 days. Right now, closing companies are really busy. In my market, they're taking 3 weeks. So know what those dates are. If you have a cash buyer, it may take a little bit longer. Depending on your loan type, it may take a little bit longer because, they may have their own underwriter. They may have an FHA or a VA underwriter that also has to approve that file. And depending on the workload of those underwriters, it might, the timeframes might be different. Home warranty.
Susan,
Hi.
sorry.
No,
Hi,
yeah.
how are you? Debbie. Hi.
Hi, Debbie.
A quick question on that. What is kind of an average time frame for kind of the loans to be able to be underwritten and all that? Is it like a month? Is it a week? Is it? I really don't know. And I have a buyer right now that I'm working with, so.
The answer is it depends, which is a terrible answer. But if your buyer is pre-approved, they're working with your lender and all of their documents have been turned into the lender and submitted to underwriting, and all the documents are approved, when you're submitting an offer, you talk to the lender. They might be able to do a 30 to 45 day close.
Okay.
If they haven't submitted any of that, you're not getting a 30-day close right now in my market. But
Okay.
definitely ask your lender. I would say you're a 45 to 60-day close, but I would confirm that with your lender in your market. But that is the beauty of getting having that how to be a strong buyer conversation when you're consulting,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
getting them fully approved. Because if they end up finding a house where the seller is like, it's a benefit for them to be able to close sooner rather than later, and now your buyer has already been approved and your competitors have not, you have leverage over them in a multiple offer situation now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I
Hi.
think Deb's question was more of going from not having a pre-approval to getting one. How I think that's what her question was, not the closing process itself. I think we're aware that closing process can take anywhere from 45 to 90 days, depending on the market.
Yeah.
And what type of loan you have. I think her question was more, what do you see typically how long it takes, and how long it takes for someone to go from not having any documentation with the lender to getting a pre-approval. I think.
So if you're
Correct me if I'm wrong,
conventional,
Deb.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, to be perfectly honest. I just started working with this buyer, just met her over the weekend, so we're kind of starting the process. But
yeah.
because I'm new, I have reached out to some people I know for some lenders for her to get in touch with, but I'm not very knowledgeable on just kind of the time frame. I did say for her to start the process, but kind of didn't really give her an answer on the time because I really don't know.
Sure. So if it's in my market and where our lenders are super busy because they're doing refis and they're doing new purchases, and we're all using the same underwriters and we're all using the same appraisers. If it's a conventional, I would do at least a 45-day close. If it's a FHA or a VA, I would talk to the lender because they might be a 60-day close in my market, because there's fewer, they have to hit a second layer of underwriting with
Mhm.
those loan types, and there's fewer appraisers for those loan types in my market.
Gotcha. Okay. And then to get just pre-approved, like a week or two, maybe, like just in general?
If it's taking 2 weeks, you need a new lender.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mean. I really don't know. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I would
All
say
right.
it should, this is where your relationship is important, because if I am working with a buyer and they're not pre-approved, but we're shopping and I know their motivation is high, I'm going to communicate that to my lender because I'm going to want them to put them at the top of the list. I might also be sending them another buyer where their need and their time frame is longer. So I'll say, bump these people to the bottom of the list and these people to the top of the list because we need to go shopping right now, and I want to know what we can shop for.
Okay,
In that scenario, they should be able to do it within a few days.
perfect. Thank
If
you.
they're really good, they can do it within a day or two.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Loan approval, closing date, home warranty. Review any home warranty considerations. Are you guys having a lot of communication about home warranties right now?
Hey, Susan, can you scroll down so we can see the
Oh,
page?
yeah, thank you. This is
Thank
in
you.
this is in page 4.2 of your guide. And if somebody doesn't have it, you can reach out to me at any time for any questions on anything from today or lists or anything like that. I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to find, and I'm always happy to help. Okay. Anyone doing home warranties?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because I'm definitely interested in this, because I have a seller right now that their furnace and roof are getting toward the end of their useful lives, and they were talking about providing a warranty, but I don't know much about them. So any information is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So home warranties can be awesome. I use them more in a buyer's market. And Home Warranty of America is the company that comes top of mind to me first. You could look them up. A home warranty is something that you can purchase, and it covers that. They usually have like a few different categories that you can purchase, meaning I cover a little bit to I cover everything. And in general, they'll cover the systems of the house. So if, it might cover the furnace or appliances, big ticket items like that, roofing, if something goes wrong. So I use them more when it's a buyer's market, and I would encourage my sellers to offer a home warranty, because now the tables are turned, right? There's not that many buyers out there, and there's a ton of people that want to sell, and it makes it a competitive advantage for my seller at that time to have a home warranty to offer their future buyer. It could also be used in the scenario we talked before about, maybe the furnace is 25, 30 years old, nearing end of life, but your seller might be like, look, it works, but I keep having this problem with buyers looking at the property, and they're saying they want a new furnace. I might be able to offer, from a seller perspective, I might say, my furnace works. I have it serviced every year. I'm not having any problems with it. So maybe I'm going to offer a home warranty that's going to cost me $500. And that's going to maybe prevent a buyer coming in and saying, I'm taking $8,000 off the purchase price because of the age of the furnace. That might be a strategic way that you use a home warranty. I haven't done a home warranty since it's been a seller's market. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, so just wondering if there's a typical price range for those, and it's probably all over the place, I would imagine.
Yeah, when I was doing them, they were like, they could be anywhere from like $500 to $1,000. So I'm trying, it
there a-
may be, what?
I was just gonna ask if there was like a typical term for those, like in terms of length of time, or
So Home Warranty of America, look them up.
Okay.
They have like a gold, platinum, silver, gold, platinum, I think is what they call them. And the more expensive covers longer terms and more systems in the house. If you are coming from a buyer perspective and you're worried about those items for your buyer, you could put in your offer as a contingency, seller to provide home warranty. But if you're going to if you're going to put in a contingency like that, the more contingencies that you add in a seller's market, the less likely of your offer getting accepted. However, it may still be appropriate to put it in there. If you are going to put it in there, be super specific, meaning name the warranty specifically, and I would even have documentation on that when you're submitting the offer. Because if you just put in seller to provide home warranty, the seller is probably going to find the cheapest, yuckiest home warranty that they can find, but it meets the contingency unless you're specific.
Susan.
Hi.
Hi. Andy Cerrone, Keller Williams, Leading Edge. Just a question for you. Do you find that a lot of people, because it's a seller's market, do you find that a lot of people are like, I'm selling my home as is, I'm not fixing anything, this is the way it is, and that's it?
Probably more than when it's not a seller's market. So in that scenario, and sometimes you'll see that whenever there's a bank deal, right? Because banks are always as is. You might also see that in a scenario where maybe the house is in trust and people have passed away and the kids are left to sell and they don't know anything about the house, so they're doing it as is. If you're the listing agent, please call me and have a conversation in that scenario about pre-home inspections. I'm not going to go off on that tangent because I could. But if it's being sold as is, you may still have an inspection contingency, meaning I can go in and inspect, and I know you're not going to do anything, but at least it gives my buyer the right to back out if they see something really scary. Or it could be your offer price reflects knowing that it is as is. But remember, in that scenario, we are real estate agents. We are not home inspectors and we are not contractors. So when we're going in there at the showing and we're looking at potential pitfalls, we can't tell them how long a furnace is going to last. We can tell them how old it is. We can look at the service records. We can try to identify ages of things, but we can't we can't tell them how long systems are going to last. Because then when it doesn't last that long, you're kind of in hot water there. But if it's as is, it's as is. Every buyer is facing that same risk. So the purchase price should reflect that. I will say I'm in this scenario right now where an agent wrote a contingency in a contract saying inspections are for information purposes only. Then they did inspections and asked for 15 grand off. Don't be that agent. Because now I know the game that they're playing. And I do enough business. I'm going to see, they're going to submit another offer in the future on my property. They're going to put it in. And I'm going to know that they're not not going to act in the way that they submitted the offer. So if you're going to put a contingency in there or say something, follow it through. Okay. Anything else on home warranties? We're going to see them come back around when it turns into a buyer's market.
I do have a question on them. And I'm seeing it from the buyer's perspective, but this would be from the seller's perspective. If buyers are coming after inspection and they have like a laundry list of things that they want you to, as the seller, to fix, have you seen it done where instead of, line iteming those things to fix, they just say, how about we just provide a warranty for you instead?
Hey, gold star for you. That's a great option.
Okay.
That is really good representation of your seller. Because by the time you get in there that far into your contract, we typically don't want to start over. We want to figure this out together. We want the deal to stay together, but they might be asking for a new furnace and your seller might be saying it's fine. So that is great. That would be great advice for an option for the seller to do that.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, love that. Repair limits. Focus on the items that the buyer is most interested in repairing. Bear in mind that the law regulates how much money the seller can give to the buyer. So what we're talking about here, like if you want the seller to repair items or maybe you do the inspection and we don't want them to repair anything. We're going to want to do that ourselves. So maybe we're going to ask for a seller concession at that time. Your loan type might only allow for 1%, 2%, 3% of the purchase price to be a seller concession to the buyer. So if you're asking for a dollar amount that's 6% and the loan type only offers 3%, and you agree on that, and then you get to finance commitment and the lender's like, yeah, you can't get that. You kind of putting your buyer in a bad spot. And with the repair items, keep in mind that you will have put your offer in based on condition. Health and safety items will have to most likely be done per the lender anyway. But outside of that, if it's aesthetics, we like the buyer to deal with those after. So there's a lot of consulting here on repair items and going through the inspection process. I do a lot of consulting with my buyers, especially in this market, that when we're making our offer based off of having an idea of what has to be prepared for things that are obvious or maybe updated if the kitchen and bathrooms or flooring or carpeting or whatever is super old. When we go through inspections, we want those to be for significant issues not previously disclosed. And we don't want to advise our buyer. I want my buyers to know that we're not going to be asking for honeydew items to be fixed. You create your honeydew list after you close, give it to your spouse, and then you start handling those as part of home ownership when you're purchasing a property that's not brand new. There will be items that you're going to want to do. When you start asking the seller to fix a lot of stuff, either at the offer, you're reducing the likelihood of them getting their offer getting accepted. And if you're doing it at inspections and there had been multiple offers, or maybe there's a backup offer in place, I have two listings right now that I have active buyer backup offers on. So if I'm going through inspections and they're being ridiculous and asking for things they shouldn't be asking for, I'm not going to play ball with them. I might have a better backup offer in my back pocket. I might not want this one to work out. Be careful when you're asking for a lot of items. If you're not sure, ask your mentor or your sponsor or your coach to help you with stuff like that, because you negotiate a contract twice, when you go under agreement and then during inspections. Special clauses or contingencies. Carefully written, so these are special conditions that must be met in order for the contract to close, such as satisfactory inspection report or buyer obtaining financing. Carefully write any special clauses or contingencies your buyer would like to include in the offer. So, you know, most, I know in New Hampshire and Maine, I haven't seen, you know, the other states' contracts. You can usually write in contingencies that might not be in your boilerplate offer. Be careful with them. If you are going to write in a contingency, have it be very clear, because once it's subjective, I have my perspective and you have your perspective. Who's right? And I love contracts classes, so I don't want to get into a contracts class because we'll be here all day. But if you are going to write a contingency in there, or if you feel like you need a custom contingency in there, please get some advice from your leadership before putting it in there. But you can definitely do that. There's scenarios where you might want to write something in. Does anybody have a custom contingency they can think of they might want to put in there? So it could be you're putting an offer in on a condo. You might need condo docs within a certain number of days for your lender. That might be a special contingency that you put in there. It could be a multi-unit that you might need leases for the tenants that are in there within a certain number of days. That could be in there. Stuff like that. Okay. And then a cover letter when submitting an offer. And remember that my technology is a little, skills are a little small. So I'm going to try to put that down there, put this in here. Play from current slide. Are you guys seeing now the right, use slideshow? Uh-oh, are you guys seeing?
We're seeing,
That's good.
write the offer.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
seeing checklist to write an offer, put a stellar offer together,
Okay.
and then create the offer in command. Susan, that's what we're
Okay.
seeing. Yeah.
Cover letter is what I really want to get to. Hold on
Okay.
here. Let me back up a smidge here. Because
You
I don't want
just
to skip the, I have a responsibility to promote command, so I don't want to miss that. So we just went over this checklist to write an offer. That's what you're seeing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then we're going to, so create offer writing guidelines. I want to just mention command because you do want to be putting all of your information in command and creating the opportunity. It's definitely good practice to be putting your offers in there. And it's a great way to document. When we're working with buyers, we may be writing multiple offers. So you want documentation. You need to be keeping good records, and you want documentation of what you're offering and what the history of the number of offers are that you're making for these folks. So make your offers and opportunities in command, and let command do your heavy lifting. And then when you do go under, you're in better shape. So cover letter template when we're submitting the offer, I call this the love letter. So there's a couple terms for love letter, I think. I'm going to mention both of them. Love letter from your buyer to the seller. I used to do them all the time, but there are a lot of federal fair housing issues that are coming up with them. But I feel like I would be remiss in not mentioning them because they're out there. That's when you have your buyer write a letter to the seller directly. Loved your house. I can see my family growing up there. Can't wait to teach my daughter how to cook in your kitchen, or, you know, stuff like that. I would say talk to, and I have since not been using them because there are federal fair housing issues around that. Go to your coaches on any parameters around doing that. I have moved more to really writing a love letter to the co-broke. It's so important to have good relationships and a good reputation in your marketplace. You really want to be an agent that other agents want to work with. I feel like I am that agent, and it will help your buyers as you're moving forward with your career that you are a professional agent, meaning I don't change my tone. I don't pass judgment on, I might, if I'm feeling like I'm getting a ton of snarkiness from the listing agent, I ignore that. It's not in my buyer's best interest to pass that on to them. It's not in my buyer's best interest for me to sink to their level with bad communication or being snarky back to them. It's in my client's best interest to be the most professional person at the table. It's in their best interest for my written and my verbal communication to be solid every single time. That means every email that I write to them is, you know, hi Sarah, this is Susan. I hope this email finds you well. And then getting into why I'm communicating with them. Every email, every time. I communicate with them in the vehicle that is appropriate. So when I'm submitting an offer, it is a cover letter. So I don't do it as an attachment, I just do it as an email. This is a sample of what a cover letter could look like. This one is, thank you for taking the time to review our offer to purchase your home, a brief description of the client's offer, explain why clients are attracted to the property, describe your client's plans for the property after purchase, and thank them for their time and that you look forward to working with them. I add a couple things here. That's a good way just to submit an offer. You want to put it in writing. When I send that, I also call them to let them know I submitted an offer, because what if they're not on email? You don't want to assume that they got the offer. You want confirmation that they get the offer. My emails when I'm submitting an offer sound a little bit like this. Hi, Sarah. This is Susan from Keller Williams. Thank you so much for your time at the showing at 123 Main Street the other day. My folks are very interested. They love the house. And then you can fluff it up with what parts of the property they love. They could see themselves raising their family here, whatever. And please see the attached offer. I also would love for you to let your sellers know that I've consulted with my buyers. They understand that the home inspection process is for significant defects that were not previously disclosed, and they are well aware and will not be asking for any honeydew items. I'm putting that on there right away. I want them to know, because that's a seller's fear, because they know you negotiate an offer 2 times. When you go under agreement and when you go through home inspections. So I'm wanting them to know right away that we're going to get through the home inspections as quickly as possible, and that I'm not going to be asking for dumb stuff. They're working with a great local lender, Shannon Sansucci at Harbor One Mortgage. They have gone through the whole approval process. Their file has been submitted to underwriting already. So they're a very solid buyer with very solid lending. I want them to know that their files, if it's true, that their file's already gone through underwriting. This takes a lot of risk off the seller's plate. So I'm going to make sure I'm identifying that, and that information is getting passed on to the seller. I may now also, if my seller doesn't have anything to buy and they're flexible on if my buyer is flexible on the closing date, I want them to know that. My buyers are really flexible on the closing date. They don't have a home to sell. They're currently living with their in-laws, so they're happy to work with your folks on a closing date that works well for them. Hopefully, I've already talked to them about the listing agent about what kind of closing date works well for the seller, so that I'm really customizing this offer to the seller. And then I want to let them know about me. Maybe I haven't worked with them before. Sarah, we haven't worked together before, but I want you to know that I'm a very easy agent to work with. I'm very professional. I've been in the business a long time. I'm all about creating a win-win environment for the buyer and seller. And you'll find my communication to always be professional and timely. I would really love to do a transaction with you. Please confirm that you've received this offer, and I look forward to hearing from you. That's kind of what my love letters look like. I want to tell Sarah or whoever the listing agent is exactly what this transaction is going to look like. And I want to communicate to her the way I want her to communicate to the seller about me and my buyer. Because now I'm selling, I have to sell myself to them. They have and now I'm also submitting a complete offer. I have the offer. I have all the signed disclosures. I have their pre-approval letter. I have everything, a copy of their earnest money. I have everything that they're going to possibly want and need, because now I've just told her how professional I am. Now I'm showing her how professional I am. We're selling all the time. We're in the relationship business, but we are salespeople. So this is a fantastic opportunity for you to sell. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yes, I do.
Hi.
Hi, it's Mary again. So that first insert portion of provide, a brief description of the clients making the offer, that window seems like a very sort of fair housing danger zone for me. Like, because I've had that, asked of me from other agents, tell me something about your clients. And I don't even want to say, it's a married couple, or they have, a 5-year-old or whatever, because that all feels like that's going to fall into the fair housing section. So what is the best way to answer that question without violating fair housing?
It's a slippery slope. I really appreciate your question there. I do want to let them know. So this is the deal. This is a business transaction, but it's super personal.
Right.
It's super personal for the sellers. A lot of times you have sellers that they'll pick someone they like over price.
Right.
If this has been a family home for a long time, they want someone to love that home as much as they do. So you want to express that without crossing those barriers, right? So I'd kind of be brief. I would thank them, if you are feeling like that is your seller, you can speak more about them than about your folks, making, like, thank you so much for your showing. We could tell how much your sellers have loved this home and put so much care into this home. The comfort that we felt walking through the door made us know right away that we wanted to make an offer. My folks are looking forward to loving this home as much as your folks seem to have loved it and want to make it their own. I'm not talking about family. I'm not talking about church. I'm not.
Right.
It's a tough situation. Appreciate how much they have loved the home would be my advice. And then align it with my folks are really looking to love this home as much as we know your folks have loved this home.
Okay.
That might be a way to get around that without, violating that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But in this scenario where a listing agent is asking me tell me a little something about your buyers, when I'm saying, hey, we saw your house, we're interested, we're thinking about putting together an offer. And they say, okay, tell me something about your buyers. What are the points they're actually looking for there? Is it the loan stuff? Is it the... Yeah. Okay.
So I would be like, okay, well, my buyers are coming in from out of state. They have nothing to sell, or maybe they do have something to sell. If they do have something to sell, update them on that. Is their home already on the market? Is it under contract? Are they past contingencies? They're wanting to know, okay, how many houses are we stacking up here in this domino line?
Yeah. Okay.
And if there are none, that's a selling point.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you definitely want them to know my folks don't have a home to sell. So we're extra flexible on closing dates. They're going to want to know about their financing. I just can't stress enough, get them approved, get them down that track of having their documentation in, because you really can sell that. If that seller is someone that gets stressed out easily, when you can sell to the listing agent, my folks are going to be so easy to work with that they have working with a local lender. Me as a listing agent, I love to hear that every time.
Yep. Okay.
I love to hear that they're approved.
Yeah.
And then I spell out to them what approved is, because I can't be sure that that listing agent knows what that it means. Not Keller Williams does awesome training. Other brokerages do not. So don't assume that they know what that means. Spell it out.
Okay.
They're approved, which means that they have already passed in all of their documentation to the lender. It's already gone to underwriting. We just need to put this house's name on their application.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Because I've been kind of caught in that. Like, I'm just sort of searching for the right answers. Like, I had I have a widow that we just put an offer in, and prior to viewing, she was looking in a very high range. So they were sort of pre-qualifying us before we even went to the properties. And they'd say, like, tell me something about your buyer. And I don't want to get into, well, she just lost her husband, she's single,
No.
I can tell them, yeah, she's moving from Maine and she doesn't have a house to sell, but the rest of it feels very hairy to me. And like, I feel like I can get trapped into divulging stuff that I shouldn't.
I'm so happy that you asked that question, because as a listing agent, I never would have assumed that that's what you thought. I ask that question. I always say, tell me about your buyer.
Yeah.
And I really don't care about that stuff.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
I
Well,
really am asking,
yeah.
who have they talked to for a lender? Is it a local lender? Are they pre-qualified or are they pre-approved? Do they have something to sell?
Okay.
I want to know how strong of a buyer they are,
Okay.
because my job when I represent the seller is to get them the strongest offer, to get them the most money with the most approved buyer, and get them to the closing table as easily as possible.
Okay.
That's what I'm really asking.
It purely just comes from my ignorance, because probably, a year from now, I'd laugh at myself asking this question, because I know what I'm looking for as a listing agent, but I don't yet. So I don't know what they're looking for,
I'm so happy you brought this fresh perspective to
I'm
me,
like,
because
yeah,
now I'm going to ask that question differently when
Yeah.
I'm on the listing side.
They love dogs. She's a gardener. What do you want to know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary, I think a lot of us as new agents, I think that's where we come from, because we all come from that place of like contribution and relationships. It's like, what do you
Right.
want to know about my buyer? Because
Right.
I have a personal relationship with them.
Right.
We haven't gotten to the mindset of making it like, oh, you want to know professional things
you
about
wanna
them.
know
No, you
Right,
don't
Matthew?
care if they have 2 kids. One,
Right.
yeah, like
Right. Like, she's super friendly. I don't know.
she likes to ski. Like,
Yeah, she drives a great car. I mean,
yeah.
they have 3 kids. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for clearing that up. I knew I felt sort of ignorant there, and I was like, I don't know what you're asking for.
Absolutely. And if you feel like you're treading that federal fair housing thing,
Yeah.
just go back to they're looking forward to loving the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Without not giving anything away. But yeah, if the agent's asking, they want to know if you're going to get to the table.
Fair.
You're going to get to the closing table.
Yep. All
Yep.
right. Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate that.
You bet. You bet. So, and I actually, I think that the co-broke love letter can just work so well. You're just setting the stage of how you're going to behave. And also, I'm going to spit out my pet peeves, because you'll do better in this business when you have good co-broke relationships. I don't like getting emails where the subject line is the email, and then they don't even write anything in the email. So your communication right from the get-go sets the stage, whether it's for this contract or the next one. So maybe you do all of these things and your buyer still doesn't get it. We're kind of in that market. It might take a few contracts to get them under. But I'm going to remember, if I received this, I'm going to remember the next time I get an offer from you, that I already have a smile on my face when I see that the offer is coming from you. That's how I want a co-broke to feel when they see Susan Kenyon submitting an offer for their listing. Because I have agents, I see an offer come in and I'm like, oh God, please let there be another offer on the table besides this one. That's just being honest and transparent. If that's what happens. You got to make those agents want to work with you. You don't have to like working with them. They have to like working with you. All of the other stuff, just let it go. If they're snarky, let it go. If they're argumentative, let it go. We don't take things personally. This is business. However, the industry tends to act and behave the opposite way. So let's be part of raising the bar in the industry every single communication, every single time. Focus on how you and the buyer will be great to work with. Pre-approval, not just qualified, local lender, nothing to sell if that's the case, aware of inspections and the process, be an easy to work with co-broke, create the atmosphere of a win-win right from the get-go. Those are my suggestions for cover letter. Anybody on cover letter? Are you guys okay? Do you need a break?
I'm just kind of wondering what like a love letter would sound like and how it would really benefit over a cover letter.
How the email would be better over a cover letter?
The love letter, because I feel like wouldn't the love letter just kind of give a lot of leverage instead of like a lot of knowledge to the seller agent about the buyer, the buyer, that's too much information.
Are you saying a buyer love letter versus a co-broke?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Like how, like, because I've never seen a love letter before. I've never read one before, so I'm just wondering, like.
So I used to have my buyers write a buyer love letter to the seller, and it would be directly to them. And I would have like a picture of them and their family, and I would look for clues in the house of how my folks look similar to their folks, and I would say these are the points to write on. However, we're breaking federal fair housing laws while we're doing that. And I don't want to see any of you get in trouble over, no deal is worth getting in trouble. So I'm backing off of submitting those because I don't want to put anybody at risk in saying I'm violating, familial status or any other federal fair, race, religion, any of those things dependent on, how that letter is written. I don't want to be in a risk zone. So that's why I personally have focused more now on the letter that I send to the co-broke. And I'm trying to be very on purpose and intentional about communicating that to them in a way that I feel that they're going to communicate that to their seller. Does that, so my, the previous buyer love letters that I did were like that. They were like, dear, Susie, my family was in there. They have 3 dogs. I see you have dogs. However you could have aligned them. Now I'm backing off of that, and I'm trying to do that and align with. I'm trying to get that listing agent on my side.
I
Does
see.
that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah. Because I was just like, I've heard of like buyer to seller love letters before, and
Yeah.
you were mentioning like co-broker love letters, and I'm just like, I think that there's a difference, but I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
There's definitely a difference. So if I had VA buyers and I could see pictures of people in the military in the house, I would try to get them to speak to that in the buyer love letter. But now I'm just trying to not break those federal fair housing laws because people are getting in trouble and fined over them.
Susie, can I mention something? So we kind of had a similar experience. My sister, she was buying a house out here in Connecticut. And by that time I was not licensed. I was still waiting for PSI, right?
Yep.
And her agent, she was doing a dual agency. She was representing the seller and also the buyer, which was my sister. And there were multiple offers in the table. And the agent asked my sister to actually write a love letter to the seller, which at that time I was like kind of confused about it. But now that you're explaining it, it sounds more of why she would have done that.
That's why. And they used to be a lot. I used to have them a buyer write it every single time. I don't do that anymore, nor do I see them on the listing side. I'm not receiving them like I used to before. I think that there's more education between agents on possible violations of the federal fair housing. I would rather err on the side of caution personally, and not put my sellers at risk either of receiving something that could be I don't know what the ramifications are for them. So I'm trying to take a safer approach with still having the same impact. And however I communicate with the seller is how they're going to commute to the agent is how they're going to communicate to their seller. So if they're bitching to me, I guarantee if I'm bitching to them, I guarantee you they're going to be like, "Oh my God, Susan sent this over, and can you believe they pass that on?" I mean, you would think they wouldn't, but they do. So when we're on the receiving side of that, if they're acting that way towards me, I don't pass that on. It doesn't help anybody. But also don't give that other agent a reason to pass something negative on about you. And you start that tone with your love letter to the co-broke or cover letter. I guess I call it a love letter. There, Ignite's calling it a cover letter. But I use love letter because I'm wanting to put emotion behind it. I'm wanting to put feeling behind it because this is emotional to the seller. And ideally, whatever I put in here gets passed over to the seller.
How long have you seen that trend kind of come to an end now? Like I bought
Not
my
long.
house in 2019, and I'm pretty sure we wrote a letter to the sellers saying like, hey, like, yeah, we, want to buy your home. We could see us, raising our family, but like all the stuff that, you hope that they like are like that they connect on. How long have you seen that trend when did you start seeing that trend go away with
I mean,
writing?
at the beginning of 2020, I was still doing buyer love letters.
Okay, yeah. So I just want to know how recent this was, as far because I mean we've talked about it in a few prior classes. It's like, yeah, we really shouldn't be recommending that we write those letters to the sellers anymore.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know how recent
Yeah,
of a
it's
thing it
not
has
that it's
been.
not that long.
Okay.
It's really not that long. So the goal there is just like to try to flip it to something that we can do, right?
Yep.
So we can do this. And I am 100% giving you good advice when I tell you whatever and however you communicate to the other agent is how they'll communicate that.
Yeah, I mean what
So
you were
have
just
it be
telling
good.
Mary was phenomenal. Like, yeah,
Thank
like
you.
yeah, just put out that good buyer information. I have a really substantial qualified buyer, doesn't have a house to sell, eager, ready and willing to purchase. Like these are the qualifications that listing agent wants to hear, not necessarily what that seller is like. Oh yeah, like they have two lovely kids at home and a dog, they want to move into your house, and like that stuff doesn't matter to the listing agent trying to get that seller the best offer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
communication is such a big piece of this business, so we have to be intentional about how we do it every single time. All right, I'm gonna keep going before I get in trouble for being behind. Role play, buyer objections. Um, we're not gonna do breakout sections and go towards that. However, you are gonna get buyer objections. I feel like you have less objections when you're educating the buyer from the beginning of your relationship with them. That being said, you're going to write offers, and some buyers have to learn. It's like having children. Some children have to learn the hard way when you say, if you do this, this will happen, and they do this anyway. There's going to be buyers that do that, where you say, if you put in lowball offers, your offer won't get accepted. If you don't get pre-approved, your offer won't get accepted. You put offers in, they don't get accepted. Now you circle back with them and get them to do what you wanted to originally. But the more consulting that you do from the get-go, the stronger chance you have of them actually listening to your advice. They may have to lose properties before they understand that. Everyone has a client that expects to get a deal on everything. I have one right now, and they have to lose properties before they get it. Or maybe it's a long shot and they'll get it. I certainly have submitted offers for people that I know that they're not going to get, and I do it for the relationship. I do it because I'm going to now work on getting them to where they need to be. For some people, it's more of a journey. Some people just want to take your advice and jump in and get something as quickly as possible. In those scenarios, and when you're handling those objections, stick to some facts. So if they're wanting to offer low, talk about days on market, talk about closed comps, and then always go back to their motivation. If you don't know their motivation to buy, it's going to be very difficult to do that. So right from your buyer consultation, you need to know why they're buying. And do they have to buy? Are they like, yeah, if the right property comes along, I'll buy it. But if it doesn't happen, I'm okay. Don't be showing them 50 houses if that's that person. Um, does anyone have a specific scenario that they want help with on that, or does that make sense?
I would just say that from as a buyer at the time, we did that to our real estate agent. And she ended up doing 5 deals with us in 2 years.
Yeah, it was the journey, right?
And every single deal that we did, like when we sold our townhouse, she told us nothing in here is sold for over X amount of dollars. And we said, well, that's all right. This is what we want to put it on for. We sold it for $10,000 over that price. And every step of the way, she told us they're not going to take that offer. Well, you know, if we pissed off every divorcing couple in town to get into the town that we wanted, because whoever wanted out of the marriage more wanted to take our offer. We eventually ended up with a house 150,000 under asking. So,
well, it's probably good that you got your real estate license then.
I think it is, but there are those people, and I think that they can be beneficial. It can work out if they know what they're doing. The other thing was is that we walked through 100 million houses, so we had a very good idea of what a house the value of that house to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think she was very helpful in that way. And so we were very loyal.
Yeah.
So
if you're in a relationship, your folks will be loyal to you.
Yeah.
They will be. Thank you for sharing. We're going to move over to presenting the offer. Yay. I love this part. So we're notifying the listing agent of the incoming offer for a couple things, especially in this market, to find out if there's offers on the table, if we still have time to make an offer. And then we're sending the offer to the agent. We're sending it complete, like we talked about, with all of the appropriate documentation. It says here, set a deadline. I just want to caution you with, if you're putting deadlines on offers, how you communicate the deadline is important. Being super aggressive. I always like to let my buyer know that the seller is receiving this and they're under a lot of pressure. It's important for buyers to understand how much stress a seller is under, because we're wanting to create a win-win environment, because that is the strongest likelihood of offers being accepted. And then create the offer in command and consult with your buyer when the seller responds. So if the listing agent says, thanks, send it in. It's Sunday. We're reviewing all offers on Tuesday. Let your buyer know that, because they're sitting at home on pins and needles waiting for your phone call, waiting to find out what that seller has said. If the seller's not even going to be looking at it for a couple of days, still get it in. If the listing agent says, oh, you have plenty of time to get that offer in, don't worry about it. It's Saturday. We're not reviewing till Tuesday. Get it in right away. Because if somebody else sends in an awesome offer, something could happen in that seller's life that they just accept it. They don't have to honor the Tuesday. So be a good agent and get it in right. If your folks are ready to write the offer, write the offer. Hi.
Susan. Hi, Susan. Could I just interrupt?
Yeah.
I did that once with buyers I've been working with, and I felt like we actually didn't come in at asking. It was last summer. We came in a little bit lower. And I kind of felt that I say used against us, but I think it gave the agent and the seller, the list agent seller, leverage. and 2 other offers came in after. So I'm just wondering if you have run into that. If you have run into that.
I can see where if you're offering, if you're putting in a low offer, especially in this market where that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's never a set way to do it. If, because you can't be guaranteed that they're going to come back and ask you for highest and best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I've also been burnt with saying someone is giving you till Tuesday, and then on Monday
Ah,
you go to the MLS and it's flipped. So
really? Okay.
Time is of the essence.
yeah. So remember, none of this is our decision, but you consult and let your buyer make that choice. If they're offering under, I would right now consult with them that you might not have a, because they might be like, well, I'm going to offer 10 under, but I'm willing to pay 10 over. You might not get that chance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. And if you're in good communication, you might get that chance, but there's no guarantee. That seller has to represent this seller, the seller client.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I am presenting the offer, I know I've already gone over the cover letter, but I am calling them. I'm letting them know that I'm sending the offer over. Please let me know. I ask for confirmation that they've received it, because if an agent's traveling, you can't be guaranteed that they've seen it. I love sending it over by .loop or DocuSign, because you'll have a log of if they open it. At least you have that. You may be working with an agent that is not good communicator. You still be the best communicator, but now you're kind of under a little bit of a challenge that they might not be letting you know that they've received it. So ask about that. And gather it. Let me see, represent. So now we're going to talk about any questions on anything before, because we're going to move into representing the seller. And I'm such a slowpoke. It's 25 past 11, so I'm going to try to speed it up a smidge. So now we're representing the seller. Completely different hat, right? So now we receive the offer. Now we have to gather information about the buyer. And that's where we're finding out, really, can they buy? I've had agents put in offers for people that really have no business putting an offer in. So I want to get information about that buyer. If it's a cash buyer, I want proof of funds. If it's a financed buyer, I want to know about their lender. I just had an agent on a cash buyer, and I asked for proof of funds, and they're like, well, I'll give that to you once we're under. Okay, that's fine, but you might not, it's a multiple. I've just told you I have multiple offers. Like, do you want to play that game? I mean, don't play that game. I mean, they're going to have to show it anyway. If you're getting proof of funds and there's like account information or whatever, you can redact that stuff. But you need to let that seller, your seller needs to know that the person can actually afford to purchase the home, that they have financing or cash. They're taking the house off the market, so you've got to help them make the right decision. This is the business we're in. We help people make good decisions. And then we present the offer to your client. When I'm presenting an offer to a client, just like when I'm writing an offer for a buyer, I go through it line by line, because you know what that seller's doing. They're going to purchase price. They're not looking at anything else. They might not even see that they've asked for seller concession. So you need to make sure that they're aware of every other line in the contract, like what personal property, if they've written that in, like inspections, like seller concessions, like how much they're putting in an earnest money deposit, like how long it's going to take to close. So we're hitting every line in the contract to make sure that they're aware, because remember, you can counter on anything in that contract. And I didn't print the checklist for receiving an offer. I believe it's in your packets. But when we're receiving an offer, please don't assume that the information is correct. There's so many agents outside of Keller Williams that are not trained the way that you lucky agents are trained. So they write sloppy offers, and we need to tighten that up. So make sure that, the address is correct. Make sure that your seller's name are correct. Make sure, review the price. Check to see whether the offer falls in the range of the seller's expectations. I kind of want to know what my seller's objections are going to be before I send that offer over. So if it's low or high or whatever, I'm going to want to be able to communicate with them about that, because sometimes you're going to run into a seller receiving an offer. They're going to jump to that line and they're going to go, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. Send it back. Our job is to keep the offer on the table if it's a good one to work, if it's your only one to work with, and figure out, remind them you have 3 options. You can accept, reject, or counter. So price is going to be one of those areas they're going to jump to first. Earnest money, make sure the earnest money amount specified is acceptable to the seller, and talk to them about what a good earnest money deposit looks like. And remember, if they put $1,000 down, you can counter that. The time for acceptance, see how long your seller has to respond. If you're in a state where there is a specified expire date on that, make sure that you're acting within that timeline. I know in Maine, if you put that date in there, there's a line that you put in, that's the time that you have to be done negotiating. So know your contracts, go to contracts classes, and know what you have for time for acceptance. Pre-approval, verify that the buyer is pre-approved with the lender. Call the lender. If I have an offer on the table and we're looking like we're going to go that way, I call the lender before we're under contract. I want to know about them. And if that lender is not going to want to talk to me before we're even under contract, that's scary. There's such a pivotal piece to the puzzle. Once you're under contract, I know in New Hampshire and Maine, they're signing off that I have the right to call them and talk to them. So just talk to me now. I have had received offers with lenders I don't like not a local lender, and I might have liked everything else about it, and we might have gone back and countered with, let me see a pre-approval from a local lender. Remember, your seller can counter on anything in here. And how you communicate back to your buyer's agent is very important, because we want to be on the same page here. Loan approval, be sure to have specific dates make sure that the loan approval amount that they're giving you at least matches what the offer is. And good Lord, if it's way above, now you have leverage for your seller. Financing terms, make sure the financing terms are agreeable to a seller. If your property is not going to go FHA or VA and you have that type of offer, you need to find out if they can flip that to a conventional, and then you need to make that is going to be an update to the contract that would have to be made if you go under. Make sure the closing date, oopsie, oh shucks, okay. Make sure that the closing date on the offer will work for the seller. And then the last one under there, you can't really see it, is home buyer warranty.
Susan, Johanna Knight has her hand up.
Oh, hey, how are you, Joanna?
Good, Susan.
Good
How
to
are
see you.
Good to see you as well. Going back, I wanted to just, on the presentation of an offer to a seller, I'm in the habit from day one, I always start on the last page.
That's a good idea.
Because they're getting the full, package. And then when we're on that first page and we're running up to the price, I stop and I say, if you were the buyer, what do you think you would be coming in? Kind of as a preamp. And that way it eliminates that, okay, how much?
Yeah.
Do glaze over everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I have.
That's a good one. That's a great tip. Anybody else? Okay. So let me switch my screens here. We're going to present the offer. We're going to notify the seller. We're going to, when I present it, I always send it over before I call them. and you can use command to communicate the offer and use your KW app. If you need help with that, I'm sure you have a tech director that can help you. I always have had a net sheet for my sellers, and I start with the net sheet right from my listing presentation, because when we're going to start talking about the number, they're really what they're going to want to know is what they're walking away with at the end of the transaction. And so you're going to put things on there like, you know, start with the purchase price and then reduce any of their expenses like commissions. If they have a state tax that they have to contribute towards the deed prep and any closing costs. So have that ready. Update the CMA, put the offer into perspective given the current market. So things are moving very quickly. Prices are changing very quickly. You may want to update and look at comps again while you're reviewing the offer with your seller. You're going to want to review, the price, the repairs. If they're asking for repairs, you're definitely going to make sure that your seller is aware of every single contingency in the contract, not just the price, not just inspections, but like, does this have to be empty? And if they've asked for, if they kind of snuck in any personal property there, like washers and dryers or stuff like that, make sure you give your clients as much detail as possible about the potential buyers and their offer, like the things that we discussed on their lending, their ability to purchase, stuff like that. Do they have a home to sell? Their flexibility on closing date. And then remember, the seller has 3 different options. They can accept it, they can reject it, or they can counter that. And I always make sure that they have a copy of the offer in front of them. I have a copy of the offer in front of me. If there's more than one decision maker there, make sure that both parties or however many parties there are privy to that conversation, so that, you don't want to negotiate this and have the one partner sign that might not have known all of the information and then have a question mark lingering after you're under contract. Okay. Any questions on presenting the offer? Okay. We're now going to respond to the offer, and remember how important that co-broke relationship is. So I've worked with some pretty unique sellers. Some of them are very direct, and it's good that they're not doing this on their own because they'd probably never sell. They can be very stressed out. If this is the only offer on the table, they could be very heated about some things. Remember that we don't pass any of that on to our co-broke, because whatever we pass on to them, they pass on to the buyer, and you might as well stop now. They're hiring us to be the most professional person at the table. So we're going to respond to the offer. And remember when we're responding to the offer that the seller does not have to go back for highest and best. And honestly, I've never seen it happen more frequently than right now, that sellers are not always going back and asking for highest and best. They're stressed out. They might just pick an offer for whatever reason, and that's who they're going with. Did I pass over? 1 second here. Reach a decision. Here we go. They don't have to go back for highest and best. If there's multiple offers, then you can go back and ask for highest and best. That's a time when I would ask for a deadline. If you have multiple offers, you can ask for a highest and best. Say, we're asking for highest and best, and we'd like all responses by this date and time. They can accept the offer, reject the offer. They can renegotiate the offer. If they counter the offer, then you go back into negotiation. Now you're opening up for negotiation on anything. A lot of times you might see agents doing negotiation verbally or in email, as opposed to taking that purchase and sales agreement or the offer, marking it, initialing it, sending it back with the negotiated counteroffer. If it is done through an email, then remember that after you're done negotiating, everything has to get put back in writing. Nothing verbal can be happening here between agents. When you're putting communications between agents in an email, we have no guarantee that the other party agreed to that. So if it's happening by email, make sure that you're keeping track of that. Make sure that when that final contract is written, that everything that your folks have agreed to has been put in there. If they're accepting the offer, then you're really just signing and executing that contract. If you're just accepting it the way the offer was written. If they're rejecting the offer, remember as a buyer agent that that doesn't mean it's a no. It just means that now you know what kind of seller you're working with. You could put a new offer in, but your seller is letting you know that they get offended easily. So that could be a reason why they just rejected it. They could just not want to play that game of you're starting off at half the purchase price. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a no. And responding to the offer. So when we're responding to the offer, I know we've talked about this a lot, so I won't harbor it too much, but responding to the offer is really about being professional. You're making sure that if you're representing the seller, that whatever if you are countering, that gets displayed and communicated back to the buyer the way that you would like it to. So your communication is important. Does anybody have any questions on all of that? Presenting the offer, reviewing the offer, responding to the offer?
It's possible that the seller just doesn't respond at all, and right, like that's just a rejection.
Well, if they haven't responded at all, so this is where it's hard because you might be in a multiple offer situation, and some agents don't tell you that they're not responding to your offer. They just go to the agent that they're going to negotiate with, and they don't even communicate that stuff back to the other stragglers that are hanging out there. So stay in communication. If when you presented that offer, part of that was letting me know you have it. I verbally, I pick up the phone and I call them. And when can we expect to hear back? Something that you should be asking them. When you haven't heard back from them by that time, a friendly call to them. Haven't heard back, I'm checking in on my folks' offer. They might be like, oh, well, they've moved forward with another offer. They may have just been moving very quickly. They may just be unprofessional and not go back to anybody. There's agents that will do that. They may have just moved on. You have to just kind of be the squeaky wheel and find out why they haven't responded. If they're responding because they're just rejecting it, then you want to find that out too. So if you call back and say, just want to find out what's happening with our offer, they've either find out if the seller's moved on with someone else or if they're just rejecting it. If they're just rejecting it, assume that it's because of price, but you can always ask.
I think in this market too, you've got to understand that sometimes there's 20, 30 offers, and it could be the agent responded to 20 of them, but not missed 4 somehow. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of it is just because of the way where we're at.
Yeah, just choose not to get offended. I agree with that. Somebody else had something?
I had a question. Hi, Susan. I was just wondering, do you find that it's better when you have offers to take them as they come, or do you think it's better to say, hey, I want the best and highest offer or whatever on Tuesday, blah, blah, blah date? You know what I mean? How do you handle it?
So when I'm representing the seller, I feel like it's in the seller's best interest to have as many potential buyers go through that property as possible. I also like to be the best co-broke in the business. So if I put a property on the house, a property on the market on Friday afternoon, and I have showings starting on Saturday, and an offer comes in and I accept it Saturday night, and you haven't had time to even see that house, maybe you're at a wedding that day, maybe your buyer's at a wedding that day. Um, wow, what a jerk I am for not even giving you an opportunity to see it. I don't want to jam up I don't want to jam up my realtors that I work with saying, okay, you cancel your family plans to now see my offer because it's only been available on Saturday morning and I'm going to go under contract Saturday night. I don't think that's in my seller's best interest because they deserve to have every buyer go through that door that's going to write a good offer because I want them to get the highest offer with the best possible terms that they're happy with. So personally, I like to give it a couple of days. I like to say we're going to, ideally I would hold showings, hold an open house, let the property be seen for a few days, receive offers, and make a decision quickly. That's my personal preference. Now, if an offer comes in for a lot over asking and it's cash with no contingencies, my seller might want to just take that. I can't hold a property for somebody else. So there's always the potential for that to happen. But I don't like in general to rush. Remember, I like to move quickly without rushing.
On that note, do you like to put in offer deadlines?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Because if I put an offer deadline in there and my seller gets a fantastic offer that they want to accept,
Right.
how real is that deadline?
Right. I had an agent tell me this weekend at an open house that he had some offers on the table, but he does not have a deadline because he feels that they are inhumane. That was his direct quote. And so I was wondering what part of that is inhumane, because on my side, it feels like, okay, at least I know I have until Tuesday at 5, for my buyer to consider this, or that nobody's going to come, sweep this house out from under us before we've made a decision. So it feels like a good thing to have a deadline there. So I'm just looking for the perspective of why it could not be a good thing. I mean, other than what you just said, that like a glorious offer comes in, we've said we're not going to pick until Tuesday at 5, but an all cash, Christmas sack just showed up on our front step. That's the only scenario I see in which it's maybe not good.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, we work for the seller. So our intent could be to have a deadline. And, if that scenario happens where I've said, okay, I'm going to have an open house this weekend, I'm going to let folks go in there all weekend, I'm going to receive offers and review them and respond on Tuesday, and that glorious offer comes in, you call everybody.
Okay.
And say, our intention was to hold offers, but an offer that my seller couldn't refuse came in and we went under. That's the market. We do what our sellers direct. And sometimes buyers are going to miss out on properties.
Yeah. Okay.
But I do like the idea of, I don't like the idea of making it such a hustle, because I do want to make sure that my seller has the opportunity to have every good buyer walk through the door to get a good offer.
Right. Right. No, it feels like a good idea to at least build in 3 days of it being, at least.
So I'm going to flip this around a little bit on you guys too, because we don't know, right, when this market is going to change.
Yeah.
And we're going to, at some point, be in a market where it's not a seller's market, or it's just not as hot as it is right now, where days on market are more reasonable, like 30 or, 10, 20, 30, more than one.
Yeah.
And in those scenarios, your first offer is often your best offer. So I hate to say that it depends every single time, but it really does depend.
Okay.
So be prepared for a shift in the market where that could happen, where we're not in a multiple offer situation. And that first offer could be your best offer. If there's something good to work with there, try to work with it when you're in a season where you don't have other options to go to.
Susan, have you ever run into a scenario where the buyer is imposing a deadline in terms of a response?
Yeah. I just was in one this weekend. A buyer put an expiration date on there and we called them and said, yeah, we're not responding in that time. We just can't. It wasn't realistic.
I
And
had a scenario where it was a $400,000 ask list price, and the first offer we received, it went a couple of days, and that it was a full price offer, where the buyer was paying about a third of it in cash. And on the second or third day, they came to us and said, look, my buyer doesn't want to get pulled into multiples. We feel like we've given you a good offer and they're paying a lot of cash. And, we'd like to get a response within 48 hours. And if we don't by then, we're going to withdraw the offer.
well, I think that they did one of the things that they did right is to tell you why. If they hadn't told you why, then always come from curiosity, right? Well, help me understand what is important to your buyer that they need a response that quickly. If there's a reason that your seller can't respond that quickly, let them know. Well, my folks are out of town until this date, and that's when we'll be able to respond. If it's that great of an offer, listen, I don't come from judgment on any of this. If that is an offer that really works for my seller, that maybe my seller, they're like, I have got to get under contract right now because we have another deadline that I have to meet. And they're super happy with the price. The financing is stellar. They don't have anything to worry about. If there might be a reason for them to want to accept that.
Yeah, we
Have
did take
50
the offer.
yeah. So that kudos to them. It may work some of the time. The importance is staying in really great positive communication and ask the right questions. Tim Lindsay looks like he has something to add here. No.
I'm leaning out. I'm on the edge of my seat with interest. That's all.
Oh, okay.
That was snarky. I'm sorry. No, I was just, I'm upright. That's all. I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
Monday. I'm doing great.
Just
Loaded with
checking.
caffeine.
Just checking. Yeah. And you know what? That was a great job on the buyer's agent part because they told you why. He also has a strong buyer, putting a third in cash. So we have some strong financing there. He also communicated with you and he didn't put a lowball offer in. So that's where it depends. My seller might be thrilled in that scenario that they can be done. They don't have to worry about any more showings. They don't have to worry about keeping the house clean. Are you telling me that I'm getting a great price with a great financing option and I can be done? Where do I sign? So just do your job, just do your job, guys. If your buyer is going to want to do something like that, have the other pieces of your offer be fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. Let me see. I think that we're getting close. You guys have been great. We've gotten all the way through this without a break, and I really appreciate your participation today. Are there any ahas? Things you liked, things you have questions on?
I just wanted to say, for me, this has been one of the best sessions, if not the best session so far.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you
There's
had
the
it.
mic
I'm
drop
glad
for
that it was
Susan
good for you.
Kenyon. Good for you, kid. Yep.
Yeah,
There's
very informative and insightful. Thank you.
Yes, and I really liked the idea of the cover letter because that's the first time I've really heard of that. I've heard about the letters to the sellers personally, but I really like that cover letter. I think you can get a lot accomplished and it kind of brings everybody together closer. I like that a lot. It's not as
Awesome.
impersonal.
Awesome.
I like that idea too of the cover letter from agent to agent. And I've done that kind of on the phone, but I haven't put it in writing. But also it was really helpful. I have buyers I've been working with for a while and they always do the letter to the seller. And I hadn't realized, I'm in Massachusetts, but I hadn't realized that of late, there have been questions about, fair housing and all of that. So I need to be very, very careful. I just wasn't aware of that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I learned that. I didn't know that either. That was a
Yeah.
piece that I learned this year.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
I like how you mention never to communicate with high emotions between the buyer and the seller. It's a good reminder. And also I like how you mention have a good relationship with co-brokes.
Awesome.
I just wanted to share something, and I thought it was pretty good. If you get a seller that is trying to sell the house as is, and that's how they want to sell it, a good way to, entice someone is by, a buyer is by using a home warrant, offering a home warranty.
Yep. Fantastic. Awesome. So you guys aren't done exactly yet. We're going to go to, we do want to bring it back to reminding you that our goals are to be still adding 10 contacts a day, having 10 conversations a day, 10 handwritten notes, and preview 10 homes. This stuff is still super important. One of the best quotes I've heard is dealing with business never takes the place of finding business.
Right.
Dealing with business never takes the place of finding business. We get people that want to write offers. We receive offers. We have offers to negotiate. If you've decided that you're lead generating in the morning until noon, there are no emergencies in real estate. Do your lead generation. Be finding new business. If you don't do that, you'll do what we have done. Your income looks like this. We're up, we're down. We're up, we're down. I have money, I have no money. I have money, I have no money. Finding new business makes it so that your income is like this. And I want to see all of you succeed. I don't want to see any of you have dips in your income. So don't ever drop the finding business piece of that. And it's just making that, but you have to be extremely intentional about it and on purpose about it and put it in your calendar. Have someone that will hold you accountable to it. Just do it. Do your lead generation. You'll be able to negotiate a contract at noon.
Sue, we often joke that agents sometimes are realtor rich on Friday and broker broke on Monday. Right?
Yeah, it's true. And I've done that. I've had that pitfall, and it's not fun. And if I can prevent you guys from having that pitfall, then I will feel like I've done something to contribute. And the other saying that I love is small things done consistently add up to big things in the long run. So, figure out those things like your lead gen. You don't have to do every single option for lead gen and do it well. Pick what works well for you. If it's working, don't just be busy. Make sure that your lead generation is getting you contacts, it's getting you appointments, it's getting you agency agreements written, and it's getting you offers on the table and then closings. And all of that done consistently will lead to, a great career for you. Follow your scripts. Remember that when you're lead generating, you want to be uncovering motivations. Motivation is it's so important and it's so powerful, whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, because they want the most money for their house, and I want to get the most money for their house. But if they have to get to Arizona to be with their grandchildren, and I don't have a lot of offers on the table, but I've had a lot of showings and something comes in and I need them to work with that, I need to remind them that they want to get to Arizona. And what will your life look like when that is met? Whatever that motivation is, identify the objections. Remember that not everybody's going to tell you what their objection is. So if they're not moving down the path to agency agreements, to writing offers, you need to back up and find out what their objections are. Ask great questions and you'll be able to identify the objections. And then we'll be closing deals. We're speaking in terms that the customer and the client can understand. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the more confidence they will have in you. Educate yourself. Know your contracts. You should be able to read your contracts upside down. You need to know what every line in a purchase and sales agreement says, means, and how it can be negotiated. The more you know about your contracts, whether they be agency agreements, in-house disclosures that have to be signed, or purchase and sales agreements and addendums, the more confidence they will have in you and the more likely they will be to refer you for new business. And we're not role-playing and practicing scripts. I have to remind you of the compliance do not call. If somebody's on the do not call list, please do not call them. And I do want to remind you that role play and scripting is not just for your buyers and your sellers when you're lead generating. It's for working with your buyers and sellers when you're negotiating, when you're writing offers. It's role playing for how to talk to your co-brokes. Whatever you're having as a challenge is an opportunity for role playing and scripting. And you have productivity coaches to help you with that. Update your database. Good information in, good information out. Shitty information in, shitty information out. You have command. Please use your database and update your contacts. Practice your contracts. Use the tools that you have. And I know you've seen create your success list. You know, when you have contracts that you're negotiating, remember you have a success list for a reason. Do that first, like your lead generation. And that is all that I have for you today. But if you have any questions, my name is Susan Kenyon. I'm in the Portsmouth Market Center. My email is thekenyonteam@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, and I'm always here to help if you have a question.
Thank you so much, Susan. Appreciate your time. Does anybody
And it's 12 o'clock on the nose.
Yeah, look at that. Nailed it. High D. She's got to go. She's got to go write a contract. I love the letter. So tomorrow, guys, we have Negotiate the Deal tomorrow at 9 o'clock, right back here. Deb Hayes from the Merrimack Valley Market Center in Westford, Massachusetts, and Darren Geddick from Greater Hartford are going to be controlling the conversation and taking us through all that material. We'll be back here as well. So if you guys have any questions for us, we can do that, or we can let you guys get on your way. Please don't forget, as Susan mentioned, the everything amazing that we're going to do in our careers lies in the mundane. So that 10-4 that we talk about all the time, I know it sounds like brain damage. It's the brain damage that's going to get you to afford a better helmet. So trust me, it's well worth the time to have the conversations and get people into your command. That is the humans are the fuel that you're going to power your business with. So can we help with anything before we escape today? You left
I'll be
them
doing
in awe.
contract
They're
to
awestruck.
close. I'll be doing contract to close.
Yeah, you're back. Yes. Yeah. So we've got tomorrow, we've got Negotiate the Deal. Financials with Matt Erdman, our regional operating principal, is instructing on Wednesday. And then Thursday is Contract to Close with Susan Kenyon again. And then Friday, we're we're going to do a catch-all of some material and put together a segment for a portion of the morning on Friday to put a bow on this before we reconvene back in March. So with that, guys, I appreciate your time. Thank you again, Susan, for instructing today.
Thank you,
Have
everybody.
a great day, guys. Go
Excellent.
get your 10-4, wash your hands, wear your masks, and find your people.
Okay.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
good.
Thank you, Susan.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.